Testing 1, 2, 3.
Our people eat at the Red Hot. It's rather inexpensive, and they have a lovely All right, let up. You. Okay, now you let up.
5-4. I want to speak to Mr. James Jackson in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. His phone number is 583-0224. My name is Claude Ramsey. No, I just have him when he can to call me back at Fleetwood 51754. All right.
Mississippi AFL-CIO. Yes, just a moment. Mississippi AFL-CIO. Yes, operator. All right, just a moment, operator. Mr. Ramsey.
Yellow?
Mr. Ramsey?
Yes.
One moment, please, for Mr. Jackson.
Hello? Hello, James?
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I guess I'll make out. How about you?
Oh, pretty fine.
I hate to bother you here, but I felt like I ought to give you a buzz, James, and talk to you a little bit. What'd you say?
I said, I'm not busy. I'm glad you called.
About this situation we got here. We got most all of amalgamated locals are practically on the verge of being out of the council, and I thought I ought to talk to you a little bit before.
Yeah, I knew it was
all
getting
of
pretty
got
close
out.
to the deadline.
You know what I'm talking about. We got a board meeting up here on the schedule for the 5th of October.
WA had mentioned that to me. I saw him a week ago or something like that.
What do we need to do about this thing, James?
Well, I actually don't know, Claude. I'm willing to discuss it, to see what can be done. But our position can't be too much different from what it's been. We just don't feel we can go the 22 and a half. And anything this side of that, we just have to talk about. But at the present level, and I assume they'll all drop out.
That includes Hattiesburg too?
Yeah.
Tom's local?
Yeah, all of them.
That's almost unbelievable that they'd do that, James. I swear it is.
Well, these folks in this organization will pretty well stay together. If one's out there, just about all be out,
Well, that has already been established. Of course, I was in hopes maybe that these small locals that I knew was having the troubles, that maybe they could stay out for a while and
hump with this thing. You know, with Amalgamated pulling out of this thing is just going to about be dead. That's about what it's going to be. Not just from the financial point of view, but from the point of view of getting the job done.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to do what we can, on these card files or whatever. That don't mean they wouldn't continue to, do all they could as far as the work end of it.
Well, they're gonna stay in the central bodies and work in that end of it.
As far as I know, they will. Some of them are not in there anyway. They're not near a central body. About the only locals we have in a central body is Hattiesburg, Laurel, Meridian, Macon, and Louisville, and Carran.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Those in those areas, of course, you've got several back up in the hill counties
there. There's nowhere to get to, As far as I know, they intend to stay in the central bodies. That hadn't been discussed to my knowledge, and there's been no indication that they'd withdraw from the central labor union. Because most places, it don't cost too much, see, and they can afford that, and they continue to do the work, connect. As far as I know, they're all paid up to date in the central bodies. There's been no lapse there. I'd have to check it. I really hadn't thought of it from this angle, but as far as I know, they're up to date.
Well, I tell you, it's a tough proposition, James. The way I see the thing right now, if Amalgamated all pulls out of the thing, but darn, if it looks to me like I ain't gonna have to resign as president of the council because the Amalgamated group had about as much to do with anybody as anybody else with me making a decision to run for the office to start with.
Well, I know this is true. Claude, this is not a personal thing.
Well, I know that, but
it's just strictly a matter of what you can do. I understand that Thomas even considers it personal. Between me and him, it's not as far as I'm concerned. I understand he's made this remark to a couple of folks. I don't feel that way at all. As far as I'm concerned, y'all still two of the best friends I got in the labor movement. And no matter how this works out, I ain't got no personal feeling about it. It's not a personal business.
well, they certainly there's no personalities involved.
No, I mean,
as far as I'm concerned.
Not now, there hadn't been, there won't be,
Well, we've got a problem here, but it can't be worked out with the group on the outside. That's the thing about it. See.
Well, that's true.
We got the differences. The thing from the do is stay in here and try to help do it in here. You know what I mean?
Up to a point, we were willing to do that, but then, I think I called you when I got this letter from our office, and then I sent you a copy of my answer, and then after that, they wrote a couple of letters. They wrote one to Stanton Smith, and they wrote one to James McDevitt.
Yeah.
And then they instructed me to strictly not make a move on it, as I heard from them. So now I'm bound even from the international not to move on it.
Is that right?
Yeah. Up to the point of the letters, I wasn't, I could have gone either way on it.
I see.
But now Howard Samuel, who's assistant to Petoskey, sent me direct word not to move on it at all until I heard from him. What they did do, they asked McDevitt and Smith to see if they could assist in working it out, according to just a copy of a letter they sent me, which was about 3 lines long. But now what they meant by that, or what McDevitt's and them's intentions is, I don't know. I just hadn't heard anything, other than the letters, which was sometime in August, Claude.
Yeah. Well, I felt it ought to give you a buzz and talk to you about this thing. I'm kind of on the spot in it, Jane. We got this board meeting coming up on October the 5th, and of course this thing's been set for several months.
Yeah.
But if these local unions are out, then you know what I mean. They're going to be 5 months in arrears, and they won't be eligible to participate or be on the board then. So hell, I'm going to have to present this thing to the board meeting, see.
Yeah.
And probably turn in my own resignation at the same time. I don't know. I hadn't fully made up my mind about this part of it yet. But I'll tell you this much.
The board's entitled to not seat our people. We understand that,
Well, I know, but I just, I still thought that I ought to call you and talk to you about the thing. If they'd just pay 1 month's dues till we could ride this thing out and see what the devil could be done. I hate like the devil to lose Stevens and Frieda off this board,
Yeah. The way it stands, I don't think that part could be handled, Claude. With definite instructions not to move until, I hear from them. Up to that point, see, this is what I was trying to tell you that day I called. As long as it's just us doing it, it's one thing, but then if other people get involved in it, it don't come out the same,
Yeah.
So now they're watching it, and apparently they have protested to the AFL-CIO about the whole situation from Petoskey on down, see.
I see.
And hold on just a minute. I'll tell you. I read to you what the letter said.
All right.
This is one to Mac Devitt, and this is from Howard Samuel. It's just addressed to him that says, I wrote today to Stan Smith regarding some real problems being encountered with the program for progress in Mississippi. As a result of these problems, most of our locals in the state have stopped paying their per capita. We've enclosed a copy of a letter from our manager in Mississippi which bears careful reading, and I'm hopeful that some action will be taken which will solve the problems he raises. With best wishes, fraternally yours, Howard Samuels. A copy to me, see. And he sent one to Stanton Smith, and it just said, Dear Stanton, I'm replying to your letter of August 3rd addressed to President Petoskey in reference to the fact that some of our locals in Mississippi are in arrears in their per capita payments to the state AFL-CIO. I communicated with James Jackson, manager of our Mississippi Joint Board, about this and received a lengthy reply, a copy of which I'm enclosed, and which bears careful study. I would like to suggest that your earliest opportunity you use your good offices to meet with Brother Jackson and the state AFL-CIO officials so that the very real problems involved in this situation can be solved. And signed Howard Samuel.
That's addressed to Stanton.
Yeah, and that was on August 17th, which is well over a month ago now, and Mac Devitt's letter was August 17th. Then after these letters, and they told me to hold it as is, so this is just about all I can do, you know. And the letter they referred to is a copy of the same one I sent you, you know, to Samuel on August the 13th. Apparently what they did, they reproduced my letter and sent it to Mac Devitt and Smith, the way it reads, the way their copies read.
Well, I'll just call Stanton and find out what's
In other words, this was on August the 17th, and I assumed that they'd moved, see, on it, but I hadn't heard anything from any of them.
Well, I got a note from him the other day that he was going to Alaska and to North Dakota somewhere. Would be out for a while, so that's probably the reason I hadn't heard from him.
So Mac Devitt and him both got these letters the same day, which was about the middle of August, see.
Well, I'll just call him and see what's going on, and I hope we can get this thing kind of worked out back where it ought to be here, because I'll tell you right now, James.
At any time or have been, I hadn't, wouldn't refuse to meet any group or at any place or time to discuss it. But it's 22.5 cents. Our people just won't stay in it. That's what it amounts to, which is what I tried for 2 years to convey, but
Well,
everybody seems to think it's a personal thing on my part, and, so it's not. It's our people. And
well, maybe we can pull the thing through and get the thing worked out. I wanted to bring it down to $1.25 to first go around, as you know.
well, I know.
You know what I'm talking
Well,
about.
we tried for $1 the first round, too.
I know.
I voted down, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to call him then, and I'm going to find out. Maybe I can
I don't know if they plan to do anything. Just this
be
letter
back
don't
in
mean
touch
they
with
will.
you.
But
I'll try to get back in touch with you. I hope we can get something done on this thing before that October the 5th meeting. By the way, you want to be sure you come up and bring the members of your staff to this October the 6th seminar. It's going to
some of us would probably
be very informative, James, on this labor board procedure and all that
be
stuff.
on
It's
Saturday.
on a Saturday, yeah.
It's going to be where, to Heidelberg?
Yeah, to Heidelberg.
What time's it going to start?
The registration to start, I think, is about 8:30. The meeting actually gets underway at 9.
At 9.
And it'll wind up about 4:30 that afternoon.
Yeah, is that the one that says a registration fee, too?
No fee to it. It's we sponsor it. Of course, it'll be a little cost, but we're going to take care of it. It's not going to run to that much. No.
It's going to start. Is it going to run pretty well all day, or
Yeah, it'll last till about 4:30 in the afternoon.
from 9 till about 4?
Yeah.
Okay, some of us, I don't know if we'll all be.
Well, this is it's going to be conducted by the NLRB
I
regional
got the
people.
notice.
You got the
Seem to
program.
have some people from Memphis and New York.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
other places.
Out of the regional offices. Yeah, you need to be up here because you'll be brought up to date on all the recent board decisions and all
another thing officially. We got a meeting of our state organization on November the 10th. And that's about as soon as we on a statewide basis would be in position to discuss this other thing you're talking about.
November the 10th.
Yeah. We're going to meet in Meridian on November the 10th.
Well, it might be that I can get the board to hold off on anything here until after that date. I'm glad you told me about the statewide meeting.
Yeah, it's a joint board meeting involving all of the locals and all the staff people. So we've got a regular board that meets periodically, and this is their next scheduled time to get together.
All right, James, I'll be in touch with you, and maybe we can get this thing worked out, yeah?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that only on a state level, or?
That's what it says.
State level.
I don't have a copy of it, and I didn't catch that in the hearing the reading.
Mr. Chairman, I move with adoption.
I second the motion.
We have a motion to adopt. We're having a discussion now. Want to give each one of you a chance. Would like to ask you to get recognition for the floor audit, Brother Vaughn.
That sounds mighty hard, and it ties people up mighty close. It gives them no choice at all. It just says that you just gonna wait and do what they tell you to do.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I see. Let my Brother Vaughn get through. You finished?
Well, that's my objection.
Well, are you finished? All right, who wants the next, Don?
Mr. Chairman, as I understand this resolution, it's not telling people how to vote, it's only asking central labor unions and local unions not to endorse a candidate, say for governor, before the state code meets.
Right.
And then we get in a state code meeting and everybody's split all different ways. Wait until the code convention, and then whoever is endorsed, well then support them. They can vote how they want to. It's not tying anybody.
The object of this resolution is this. In the last governor's election, we had a number of business agents, people of this kind, that had made commitments to Ross Barnett and his people before the state AFL-CIO ever held its convention.
Right.
They had committed themselves and their membership before we had ever had an opportunity to review the records or anything else. And all we're asking them to do in this resolution is to refrain from making any commitments until the state council has had an opportunity to review the records and make recommendations. That's what we're trying to do with this resolution. Who wants it next now?
I asked for it because Woodall spoke my sentiments. This is just to refrain from commitments prior to endorsements, as I understand the resolution.
In other words, it's a reminder of the people to remind them that of the convention and how it's carried out, and I think it's a very good thing. I think we get ourselves into a heck of a lot more problems than our enemies gets us into by going ahead and talking to these guys around behind the corner when they are talking off the record, and they'll talk anyway to you, but on the record they talk some other way. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think you probably are aware of this, but they're having somewhat similar experiences in Alabama right now. They're having a lot of their people endorse various candidates, and well, in fact, they've had a meeting and tried to get together, but they haven't been able to, and they're all split on about 3 or 4 different candidates. And I was over there last week, and I told them, well, they were just in a good way to lose all of them. It's the only thing I could tell them.
You know, I saw you here. I didn't recognize a couple of visitors we got at the board meetings. This time I think I should. Brother Bob Starnes back there. Glad to have you with us, Bob. And Dan Powell here, and Brother J.B. Hunter over here. Well, somebody needs an introduction, but we should have acknowledged their presence to start with. You fellas want to have something to say, it's all right. What do you think about the resolution, Dan?
Claude, I think it's an excellent resolution. You mentioned Alabama a while ago. I just came from state coach convention over there about 2 weeks ago. And they've done what Labor does so much. They went out before the convention, made commitments to candidates. We got to state coach convention. It was split 3 ways between 3 guys that were friendly to Labor. As long as we split ourselves between friendly candidates, we're always going to have more than one friendly candidate in there. Now, next year, I think that Labor is going to be more of a factor in the governor's race than it's ever been in the history of Mississippi. A lot of the politicians realize that. And I think right now, plans are underway to split you. And I think that the way they're going to do it is they're going to get 2 or 3 friendly candidates in the race for governor. And then they're going to argue, well, you can't take a position among your friends. But remember this, just as in Alabama, only one of the 3 can be elected. And if you don't solidify behind the one who is elected, he don't owe you anything. The program is going to be tremendously hurt in Alabama for their failure to endorse a candidate for governor. I hope it won't happen in Mississippi. I believe that you've got the quality of leadership over here, particularly on this board, that recognizes the importance of solidifying your forces behind one candidate for governor. So I think this resolution is excellent. I'd like in the future, for the governor's race next year, probably might be wise to do as we did in Tennessee, where we were able to get an endorsement last week for one candidate. Early in January, a year before that, they held a special conference for this purpose, the presidents of local unions, urging them not to make any endorsement.
I think if I know Gene right, he raised this question, he had to get some discussion going anyway. I think I saw that sly grin on his face down there a while ago. Am I right in interpreting it that way, Gene?
That's right, Brother Ramsey. If you remember, we haven't recovered from this yet in Jackson County. I'm heartily in favor of the resolution. And Brother Knight is acquainted with the very question that I raised. This is the only question that has been raised on any of the resolutions that have been sent out. Brother Knight was present with us in Jackson County Central Labor Union when the final going over was made. And a big majority of the people there favor the resolution as it's written. And they believe in this. But there is a militant minority in our membership that we're going to have a little trouble with maybe, and I believe we could get by with some of it if we had as well a diffused discussion and thinking as we have in the board. If we had a little more publicity in the unions, the central labor unions, and over the state among the membership, that we might miss some of that trouble.
Well, I was going to suggest here that we request that some members of the board discuss these resolutions on the floor. Maybe pick out somebody here in the meeting, request that they study them rather carefully. Well, Barnes, you will be handling resolution 6 in your committee. So you'll have an opportunity to expound on it as chairman of that committee. It might be a good idea for me to run off with you the committees that I propose to refer the resolutions to. We'll do that when we get through here, and you'll know. What do you say? Well, what is the pleasure of the board on the resolution? We had a motion to adopt it. Do we have any further discussion?
I think it's mild myself.
Think it's too mild? Well, this is the time for us to act on this thing, and I'll be frank with you, this thing is going on. There's people around here trying to get some of our people hooked already. Because I've had some of them working on me. I know exactly how they operate. Any discussion? Further discussion?
Question.
All in favor of the motion to adopt that enormous say an aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Number 7.
Whereas a program to increase unemployment insurance in groups within our state's bounds.
I move the adoption.
We had a motion to adopt.
Second.
Second. Now that we're having a discussion, I might say that the board has already voted to prepare this booklet, but we felt it would be appropriate to send a resolution in this form to draw more attention from our delegates at the convention. Purpose behind it. Any discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's one phrase in that I don't like to hear in there too much.
What is that?
Readopted.
Reaffirm.
Reaffirm, not readopt.
It's
Well, that would
reaffirmed.
be
That's
affirmed,
in there
wouldn't
that
it?
I say, adopt.
We affirmed it once.
Yeah.
In that,
It says reaffirm.
Reaffirm.
in that,
Just how would you go about reaffirming it? Just how far can you
Adopting
go?
that resolution well, the purpose behind the resolution is simply to draw attention to the program, try to get, impress on the people's mind the
But I'm
importance
thinking-
of it and getting this booklet printed mostly.
That's what I thought, and I'm thinking if somebody wants to cause trouble, that they might light on that one phase there and want to get a piece by piece action on it, step by step.
Mr. Chairman, I think, the word reaffirm is perfectly in place there. All you're doing, you're reaffirming your former position on it. We've already taken position.
Right.
And, we're just reaffirming that position, but down in the last
Well, what
sentence,
majority would it take?
50%.
Something majority.
Yeah, there's no constitutional
51.
change in anything, it's just, reaffirming the program, the legislative package and so forth, and instructing the officers to have this booklet printed, finances permitting. It's a public relations gimmick, that's what it is. And
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Brother Barnes. I think reaffirmation is completely unnecessary. We don't reaffirm everything that past conventions have done, it's successive conventions. And I think in case there is anybody looking to stir up trouble, that this is an open invitation. I admit it.
we, in the selling this program,
using the resolution.
made mention of the fact that this thing would be presented at the special convention and the next regular convention. That's actually the point purpose of having this reaffirmed part in here.
First time it's come before a regular convention.
It was
That's
adopted at the
correct.
special convention, and it was also mentioned it could be adopted at this convention and the next regular convention, or something to this effect. Now,
I
of course,
think you said it could be added to or amended at the next convention,
Yeah.
not adopted.
you ain't got a copy of the, folder here, have you? Any of you got a copy of the program progress folder?
No, I started to bring mine, I said, well, we won't need it today.
Well, I know in the folder call, it doesn't say that.
Wait, just a second.
Another project,
What you would need would be the resolution itself presented at the convention.
What would be the use in the resolution, at all if that's left out? Because actually the whole resolution, that's the heart of the whole resolution.
Resolution, print your booklet.
Well,
That's all the
that's in
resolution
there.
necessary, I think, it's print book, it's, of course, the board, I think, has that authority.
Board's already got, the purpose behind this resolution is to reaffirm the thing, it's not a thing in the world, but to bring it to this convention's attention. The board could have acted on this without convention action. They have, as a matter of fact. They just felt that it should be brought to this convention's attention. It's a matter of formality, that's all.
Well, is that not one of the purposes of the convention itself, is to, reacquaint the delegates and the people in general with the program that's in progress? Here, I think we would be losing a golden opportunity if we go through this convention without this type of resolution to read to the delegates to reaffirm our position, if I might use the word, or to remind them of the program that we have especially. And this seems to me like a perfect way to, perfect reminder. And I can't see, especially in view of the fact of the little bit of problem we had getting the program accepted to begin with the exception of the financial part of it. I can't see why they would want to dig into the program itself and cause any trouble there.
Mr. Chairman, it's this way.
Let me let Frida have it. She asked for it, Gene.
I want to ask a question that may be out of order, and if I am, well, just tell me I'm out of order. This says finances permitting. I was wondering how the finances are holding up, and the reason that I asked that is, you know, I'm from the clothing workers, and we are a little stretched to meet the dedicated fund, and of course, you know, the clothing workers are contributing, and I happen to service two small locals that really are getting in bad financial situation. And under our Constitution, the only time that the local would be relieved of paying that would be if they're out of work or they're on strike or such emergencies as that. And I wanted to ask a question on that financial part.
Well,
Is there any
we will
relief
get
for
a
little
report
locals
from
where
the
they are
secretary
really
on
hurting?
the financial end of it. We're going into this if we get through these resolutions.
This was come under the public relations,
Yeah.
set aside for allocated on public relations, I imagine, where
Yeah,
money comes from.
that's right. That's
From
the
the
item.
program.
Right. So that's the reason that's in there, because of the financial situation. If that wasn't in there, it'd be mandatory to print it whether we have the money or not. Let's see, item 9. Let me have Gene, I told him he could have it after 3. All right, Gene.
I'm hard-shell Baptist. And we don't think it's necessary to get up there one time and join it and you stay with it. We don't think it every time you go back to church that you got to rejoin to reaffirm your stand. And I'm that way in my union life too. And I feel like that our program of progress is underway, and it's underway in a big way and in a good way. And just a word to Sister Guyton here about her ladies and their paying. When Tom sent us our record, one or two of our locals had dropped out, and you were going 100%.
Yes, sir, we're paying. but
You're
it's
paying,
small
you're
locals.
paying. It's
really
hard,
bad. Yes,
but
sir.
you're the lowest salaried group
Yes,
possibly
sir.
in the state.
Yes, sir.
And when I put it to those locals, that the ladies are carrying the labor movement in Mississippi. The dollar and a quarter, the $1.50 people, they got back in. They
Well,
paid that. Didn't it, Brother Randy?
That's a good way to
So
put it to
you've
them
done a
and
good
get your
job.
people
You've
to
done
get
a
it
good
back
job.
in.
I want
But
you to
I'm
know.
wondering what's gonna happen to our people when we get to the end of the road.
All right, Beverly.
Well, question that one, just want to state a remark that was made there a while ago, that if the resolution went to the floor, that it's possible that somebody might try to take it apart. Well, the only, comments that I have heard in regard to the 18-point program is the one on poll taxes. And I believe that would be possibly the only, if somebody didn't choose in the convention to start criticizing the program, I believe that would be one of the touchy issues, poll tax section. That's the only comments that I've heard that has been unfavorable to the 18-point program in the northern part of the state.
Well, let me say this. The questions have been raised here, like giving somebody an opportunity to bring something else. If they've got in mind bringing something up, this resolution's not going to stop them. They'll bring it up anyhow. There's other ways of doing it, so I think that's, we might just well forget about that. The question here is that we felt that we'd be keeping faithful to the people as we presented this thing, and I'll show it to you. Give me a little time. Might not be this afternoon, where we said it would be presented at the next regular convention. And that's all. And strictly bring it to their minds again. It's a matter of formality more than anything else. There's no constitutional change or anything involved in this resolution. But it'd be kind of hard for somebody to bring that part of it up under this resolution.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, Don.
here's another, point in bringing the resolution out too. I think is the fact that we'll have some people here that's never been to
Right.
a convention before. And we'll probably have quite a few people that's never even heard of this 18-point program. And, I think it's good to remind them again, even though, they've heard it before. They should be reminded again. That's, it'll just spur them on. Like old horse, you ride him along, he'll finally stop if you don't gig him in the side. So, I don't see nothing wrong with the resolution.
Rita?
It seems that the only objection is the word reaffirm. Would it be better to use proceed or activate or something like that instead of the word reaffirm?
Endorse.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question? If the resolution's adopted, would that be the only reaffirmation intended? Or could someone raise a question that once the resolution's adopted, then we then have to go into a reaffirming procedure?
I don't s-
No.
Mr. Chairman, I've had the floor once, may I have it again if there's nobody wants it? As I said before, now, Brother Dan Powell doesn't like the word over there, and maybe he knows more than I do about it. But, he says he's a hard shell Baptist, and they joined the church once. Well, I'm a Baptist, not a hard shell, but I joined the church once, but there's nothing that says we shouldn't go down and rededicate ourselves and reaffirm our stand, and that's all we're doing here. We're not taking this thing up again. It's just reaffirming the thing that we've already done, and sort of giving us a new impetus. And I don't see a thing in the world wrong with it. I don't see how anybody could raise any question about it at all.
Tom wants to say something.
I might be wrong, my memory might not be working. But if it is, I've yet to go to a convention. The old State Industrial Union Council, which everybody knows I came to CIO. Before the merger, or a convention of the Mississippi Labor Council, that there wasn't a resolution reaffirming some past action.
We did that at the last convention,
Yes, sir.
about the legislative program that we
And
had.
I haven't been to one in my history in the labor movement that there hadn't been a resolution reaffirming some past action.
Question?
Question, Mr.
Preface
Chairman.
to the resolution. Any more discussion? Not all in favor of the motion to adopt, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Number 8.
Submitted by Jackson Central Labor Union.
Now, wait a minute, we don't have to read this. Let's take up number 9. That's, we don't have to affirm it. That's-
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Frida said something a minute ago about not having a copy. Frida?
Yes.
How many of these is it you don't have? You said you didn't have a copy of one.
Number 6, you said.
I have received them, and I brought a envelope along with about 4 or 5 in, but I didn't have the rest of it.
Oh, I see.
I did not receive the first 6.
It's
Where have
simple
you
labor
been?
union resolution.
I felt like that y'all should correspond with the vice president.
Yeah, you go to the
The
mail.
vice president don't correspond
Tell
with
you,
us.
that other Jim Clark with Bell Telephone got your mail. That's what happened. Resolution number 9.
Whereas the high standard of living and the delegates in attendance recommend that each local union and each local labor council appoint an organizing committee to assist the various international unions in bringing these workers into the fold.
You didn't know what that resolution was gonna say when you started reading it. what's the pleasure of the board on resolution number 9?
I move the adoption.
I second the motion.
Question. Any discussion?
And add on the discussion, it's too weak too, but it's a start.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Number 10.
Whereas one of the real concept of medical care for the aged financed through Social Security will seek the passage of the Anderson-King bill or any other legislation so designed.
Make a motion to be adopted.
Second motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. So ordered. Number 11.
Whereas in the early days of our republic, education was available only, have endorsed of this resolution be sent to each member of the Mississippi Congressional Delegation, officer of the Mississippi Education Association, and other interested parties.
I move the adoption.
Have any discussion? Ready for the question?
Question.
All in favor of the motion to adopt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Number 12, I believe is next.
I don't have, oh yeah, two.
No, I don't have number 12.
Yeah, I expect we might ought to go out there and get the kit, I guess, get more kit. Well, that
Wages and working conditions is being passed every day. If this trend is to be at the first biennial convention of the Mississippi Labor Council, AFL-CIO, assembled in Jackson, Mississippi, April 23, 4, and 5, 1962, encourage each central body in the state to take steps to strengthen its political efforts through the establishment, promotion, and implementation of an effective women's activities department.
Move the adoption.
second. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. 13.
Whereas the all-out attack to which of free riders may be removed from them, and they will assist in the job ahead.
I move the adoption.
Second to it. Any discussion?
I guess it'll come out later. One question in my mind, and I just wondered how our affiliations are. Are they up?
Down.
They're down. Well,
I think we need a good long-winded speaker or somebody with a little fire
Yeah,
in
this
the
is
blood
one,
on
this
the
is
floor.
one we want to get some good discussion from the floor on. I think several of the board members ought to speak on this thing. I really do.
I
This
wish-
is one this is our number one problem, this affiliation problem. Any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Number 14.
Whereas the Mississippi Numbers of Appeals to the Federal long and badly needed action of the United States Supreme Court, which truly is in behalf of millions of unrepresented citizens throughout the country.
I move the adoption.
Second.
Well, I think if you got an error of fact in this resolution, here, bottom of page 2. Whereas some states, that's plural, enjoy the efficiencies.
One state.
Only one.
One state, that's right. Yeah, I got Lonnie Daniels did most of the work on this resolution. And I wasn't too sure.
What was that fact again, Dan?
Alaska and Hawaii.
There's only one?
What was they doing?
Well, let's see, it's on page 2 now. That's right, we might check that out. Well, you might have one, I'm not positive about
I think Nebraska's the only one. Before the admission, these two states, Nebraska was in the run.
Well, let's see, where is that at?
The bottom
Whose thesis was this?
Huh?
Whose thesis is this that we're adopting as a resolution?
Who's what?
Thesis, doctor's thesis.
Oh, that's, Lonnie Daniel did most of the work.
Where is he doing his
Worked some
graduate
of the work on this myself.
University of Chicago.
Straighten it out. That's okay, he's done a good job
Written
on
a
it.
pretty good book there.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see, some states.
Take one.
That's not a resolution, Mr. Chairman, that's a civic textbook.
Couldn't you check that and,
But we could say, whereas at least one state enjoys the efficiency.
You may say,
When that-
you just said, whereas one state.
Well, at least one.
Mr.
Then
Chairman,
we
this
leave
might
it.
be right.
If Hawaii has got a single legislature, then it is right.
And it'll look better.
Remains-
It'd look a lot better if you leave it just like it is, frankly, if it's
Well-
possible to, without it being an error.
But mention it, well, the chairman of the
Might
resolution
look
committee
better,
is here,
but
we can
be
find
honest.
out between
Well,
now
I mean,
and
if we
then.
can do it and be honest, it'll look a lot better like this, other than saying at least one, and then
Some states.
check and see if Hawaii's got it, and if it has, some states is correct. Even if it
Well, I
doesn't.
tell you what, let's let this come up on the floor and let it come out. Somebody wants to amend it, make it one, that's all right, nothing wrong.
oh, we'll probably check with Lonnie, he probably
Check
checked
with
this
us. He can
thing
check
out,
it
he
out.
probably
He might
knows
check
it's
it out.
there.
I've asked him to speak on the floor on this resolution too. Just being from the Jackson area, it's very important when they have industrialized, have a populated county.
Might get Russell Davis to talk.
Might get him to come over here, yeah. We have a motion to adopt. We have any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and so ordered. Take up number 15. I'll read that one myself. Dawn wants to go out and check and see if everything can shape the restoration. It starts at 6. Whereas the attacks against organized labor are continuing and in fact are increasing for every affiliated local union.
Move its adoption.
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, that's one of the things that we're more lax in, I reckon, than any other one thing. I was talking with a man yesterday, and he's an officer in a big local union, and I was standing there talking with him. He pulled his cigarettes out and had a package of Winston cigarettes. Well, I every time I see it, I say something to them, whether they like it or not.
What
And,
brand you?
I don't smoke. But if I did, it wouldn't be Winston's. I used to smoke, and I smoked when they only had one brand of union-made cigarettes, and I smoked it too. I guarantee you. But anyway, that is one thing that it's hard to get our own people to realize that every time you buy something that's not union-made, you're in effect just tearing down what we're trying to do.
I think you need to get on the floor when this.
Well, I've been on the
resolution
floor
comes
so
up.
many times on this thing,
I mean,
I
in the
get tired of
convention,
hearing.
we need to get a little discussion on this thing in the convention. We don't wanna run it in the ground, but we need to bring some of these things out. Now, right down the street here at, old Louis Wilson's clothing store, I, once in a while, get enough money together to buy a suit of clothes. And, I go in and look his clothes over, and I start digging around looking for union labels. And he drug out a Sewell suit down there not long before with me. I said, man, I didn't think you get that kind of stuff in this store. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I can't buy that kind of stuff. He said, you know, there's another fella in here just a couple of days who just got all over me about the same thing. I said, well, you can expect me to get on you every time I see you if you carry that kind of stuff in this shop. Old Bill Stanley had been in there a couple of days before, discovered the same thing. Well, that's what it takes. If we get more people doing that, they'll get stuff out. You're absolutely right.
That's the same.
Well, I trade there, and when he sees me coming in, they know better than to hand me something like that. He knows what I'll tell you.
Get on about even having it in the store.
Yeah,
Well, the
we've
motion
had-
is to adopt. Do we have any other discussion? Brother
Chairman,
Stevens is chairman of that committee.
there's a whole lot of education needed on union labor, and the more I get into it, the more I find I don't know much. And, we get into, when we can lead our people into this thing, we get off the ground pretty quick. For instance, they can pitch any of it right quick on the britches. This pants problem in union labor is one of the most notorious things I've ever run into. And it's hard to meet. Is there somebody can give us some information at this convention on pants union labor?
We will have the young lady in charge of the union labor department on the program.
What do you mean, boy?
They the ones that sell the labels at 50 cents a piece to go in the britches? Huh?
No, that's UG that's in the union label selling racket, I understand. Is that not correct?
That's what I'm running into, and I'm having trouble with it, brother. These stores tell me that they can't afford to raise the price 50 cents on their britches just to put a union label in there.
Most of that's work clothes.
Most of his work clothes?
No, this is, these are dress pants.
We got two members of the amalgamated on the board. Maybe they can explain that, union labor proposition.
That's the old UG.
Freddie came out of the UG, she ought to be able to answer all these questions. How about it, Freddie?
Well, I'm a little ashamed that I was there. I think it's true, but
It is.
UG does sell labels.
The label's supposed to represent working conditions and so forth, but in my opinion of what's going on here, it's true that it doesn't. So the thing we'll have to look for is the amalgamated labor, right?
Well, now, there's another organization that
The
might.
ILTW.
I mean, it's pants now, men's wear.
Men's
We're
wear.
talking about men's wear. He raised a
ACWA.
question about pants now.
He didn't
Dress
say what
can-
kind of pants, he just said pants.
Yeah, well, that's right. Come to think about it, he didn't say what kind of pants.
I believe he said
What
men's.
kind of pants, Paul?
I believe he said men's pants.
I'm talking about men's clothes strictly. I don't know anything about any other kind. Are there any other kind?
Well, it's hard to find trousers with the union label. Now, you can find suits, but trousers, it's hard to find them. They just, even though they're union made, they just don't carry the label.
Do they actually put the label in work pants?
Not work pants, I'm talking about these pants.
Some firms.
Usually you find them in your back pocket.
Buy Steins.
Let's let W.A. explain the thing.
I don't know if
Maybe he
Peter
can
got one.
explain to us what the,
Well, you know where it is at the coat.
Well, I think, one of the reasons in the single
Yeah,
pants
yeah,
industry
you
is,
can buy trousers. You can buy just
you have so many
trousers.
different manufacturers in the business, that very few of them are organized. And those few that are
Well,
organized,
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
actually,
Not really
with the
control
competition like it is, they find that a lot of times that they're not able to sell their merchandise at a price that'll be competitive with the non-union operator. So mostly they just try to put a price and the brand, sell a brand to the people. And some of the union firms, they have to have more work than they can make in their own, in the union shops under their contracts, and they're letting a lot of that work be contracted out. So naturally, they can't put a union label in all of this stuff, because it all won't be made in a union shop. I know that's the case in the McGregor firm. They have a lot of their pants is made in non-union shops. And if they put a union label in all of their clothes, well, it'd be misrepresenting the facts to the people, and so they just don't put it in there. With the suits and coats, most of the coats are covered by a contract, but the single pants are not. That's true. Freddie has something to add to that.
I think most of you know that this Friendly Shirt Factory in Meridian just, our union just got affiliated with Amalgamated about 2 years ago, and we had to have in our contract the agreement that the label would be put in the shirt, and on the shirts it's just stamped on the tail. And right there in that factory where the shirts are made with union labor, the colored shirts that, or the materials that won't hold the stamp, the ink, are not stamped. There's some shirts coming out of Burnley's that are made by union laborers, but the stamp is not there. And you might not realize this, but just the little bit of cost that it takes for buying those labels and putting them in the garment could make a slight difference in the competitive field of garments, especially in work clothes and the lesser expensive clothes. And you just almost have to have a contractual agreement that the label will be in the garments to get it in, even when it's made by union workers. So I don't doubt that you have difficulty finding the label in work clothes.
You do, Freda. I'll have to
don't have
agree
any
with
trouble
you
with
there,
work
since
clothes.
I'm a little bit familiar on the union label end of it. And these characters get real sneaky with it. I know we put on a demonstration in Richard in Atlanta 3 or 4 years ago. And a girl tried on a beautiful dress, nice dress, and she wanted everything except she got to look at the union label, didn't have it. Well, this woman was, the clerk was going to go cut one out of another dress, see, and sew it in there. Says, if that's all that will hinder you, keep you from buying it, we'll do that. And them boogers, they pull some real deal. You take on the lingerie end of it, that's even harder than the men's wear so far as the label is concerned. Because, a little negligee or something like that, a girl don't want to have this sticker sticking around. And we're in the process now to take movie star, for instance, where it's got the movie star label, is using the machine and stamping it on the other side. Have the label stamped on the other side. And nobody will have a key to that machine but myself. But then they're going to run something around and you watch and see.
Well,
But
another thing
it just adds a little bit to the cost of the production, and that little bit makes a difference in the competitive market.
but some of the statements that it cost 50 cents, the first time I heard that statement was from a shoe salesman. It cost 50 cents to stamp the shoe label in. Well, I talked with a representative of the shoe workers union, and he said it didn't cost anything additional because the plate that stamped the brand name in that could be modified to stamp the label right when it stamped the name in, and they would pay for the union was willing to share part of the cost of having the brand name label modified to where it would carry the union label. And it couldn't be changed because there would be a number there that nobody else could use that number in the brand name if it didn't have the number and the name had to go together, or it couldn't be used by anyone but that firm. And the amalgamated, each one of their labels, and each manufacturer has a number. Like this McGregor coat has got a 19, or part of the number is covered. Each firm has got a number on that label, and that's the only firm that's allowed to use that label with that certain number.
Well, we will have Miss Hazel Moses representing the ACWA and a representative of ILG on the program that's going into this union label thing at the convention.
By the way, talking about, has Jerry checked with you yet?
I hadn't heard from him.
He's supposed to be in this afternoon, but I checked and he wasn't.
Well, I've been tied up all afternoon. He might have been trying to get me.
He was gonna set up out front here just like she is.
Well, then we have a motion to adopt the resolution. Do we have any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, is there a possibility of having a school on union label or something that we can get more information on? In thinking of this resolution here, I think there's a little bit of misinformation and a whole lot of ignorance involved. And I have a hard time finding an answer to some of the questions. Now, I've been listening, and no one has mentioned handkerchiefs. No one has mentioned socks. how do you tell that they are union made? Do you get the point of what I'm driving at, that where we're seeking the union label on our clothes? Now, someone has done a good job in producing a card that shows ties, underwear, shirts. That's yours, Russell?
Sure.
I mean the card. It's blueprinting on a white background. Who got that
No,
out?
that's not it. But there is a little booklet out, I don't know who put that out, Brother
This
Barnes,
card is.
that tells everything, even the refrigerator, coffee, and the whole story.
Well,
Up to date.
let me say this. This question that you're raising is one that disturbs a lot of people. We had quite a discussion at Miami Beach with the caucus of state council and local central body delegates. The head of the union label department of the AFL-CIO, Joseph Lewis, appeared before our group, and I don't know what had been going on here, but he really irritated this group about as bad as I ever seen somebody do. He come in and started to upbraiding the people about not cooperating with them on this union label program, and that they were going to go around and set up councils to sell union label to the people on. Well, when he got through, naturally, we had a pretty good discussion, and I raised practically all the questions that you've raised the other night in the meeting myself. And I pointed out to him that the average person had no way of knowing what was union made and what wasn't unless the label was there, that we needed a directory put out whereby we could explain to our people. Well, I've got into this problem, Gene, way back there several years ago, even before I was president of the CLU in Jackson County. I wrote them for information. They sent me a stack of stuff. The only thing that I could find was a little booklet put out by the auxiliary of the typographical union that listed union-made goods, such as stoves and stuff like this. You understand what I mean? But the union label department itself does not do this. And this is his excuse for it. That we put it out, it'll be out of date tomorrow. Somebody will be organized, it'll be a union shop. It wasn't when it was put out. Well, this is kind of fictitious to me. But unless the union label department in the AFL-CIO itself undertakes a program such as this, the state council and the subordinate bodies in the state are virtually in an impossible position to promote a program of union label for all goods. Now, we can sell your program amalgamated on the basis of union label in the shop card, see?
You take dresses, for instance, Claude, they used to be in the neck, but now the neck,
Yeah.
is vanished, it's gone.
Yeah, took the neck
So,
off.
they had to go some other place.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
Mr. Chairman, there's just one other point that I have to bring out. No one else has brought it out. We do have some friends in the business world.
Right.
There's some merchants out there who are our friends. And they would like to supply us with union goods. And there's some of those people know a lot more about union label than any of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And we can hurt those people mighty quick.
Yeah.
So we got to guard against that. And you're acquainted with the Brumfield organization down there, and I want to say this out there. When Miss, what was the lady's name on the store job?
No, the Howard, we came there first.
Lumpkin, no,
Howard.
Torrance.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Peggy came
Yeah,
there.
Miss Torrance came by now. He was very cooperative and it made it possible for her to do a good job. Everybody else had to fall in line. And you ever thought that they'd go along, and she got her information, and our people have got it. And Brumfield had always given us that respect and that cooperation. But now, we go back to him and talk to him about these soil suits, and he tells us that he's got to put the soil suit in there for the college trade. I've done a little bit of checking up on it, and I found out that he wasn't prevaricating on it. That soil suit does reach the young ones. And them young ones, they ain't got no conscience in the union labor discussion.
I
think,
talked to Smith.
and
Like
some
was
would
saying,
call
Ed
it.
Blair was in Pascagoula
And,
at
I
a meeting
kept
one
the loop. I
weekend
went back
about
to
2
the
weeks
person
ago.
and talked to him about it.
And I put him
And I
in touch
found
with
the suit
Smith.
in there
His
with the
problem
union
down there
label
was a
was
competitive
some
suit.
suit.
Where
Just
so,
in
and he
that.
wanted to know where to go to get it, so I think maybe they'll eventually work that part of it out. Well, we have a number of other things to take up here. Now, we're gonna get this union label thing well aired out in the convention, and I suggested any questions that you might have on your mind that you propose them to the speakers and the people that's gonna have the displays on. ILG and ACWA will have a display on at the convention. I think they hold the answer to most of these questions. I'm gonna get this one.
Malcolm has got some cards out there with a list of the non-union made
Yeah,
material that
this
they
might be
don't.
a good idea to get that.
One note here, Claude, I've been very closely connected here recently with the millinery workers. They don't have any representation, or they don't have any local unions in the state here at all. They have one just across the line from us at Reform, Alabama. And they've been having some trouble with sharing hats in Dallas, Texas. And we were doing some work with them in Columbus. And those people, appears to me, the connection that I have had with them seem to be in the hat industry, has progressed further actually than any other that I have found in the union label program. They put a lot of emphasis in it, and they have come a long ways in the effect of it. In fact, I know personally this plant right across the line over there, they only obtained a contract over there through the union label program. And they've been very successful up to this point in this particular campaign. And it's a problem, I assure you. We run into a lot of different problems, even there, where they've got a place to hide the doggone label from viewing, so to speak, and can get the labels in their hats. But they still run into problems also. But it's something that we have got to do. Somebody has got to do, and there's been several points, pro and con, presented here. In order for that program to be successful, well, our people at our levels have got to be conscious of the fact and especially when they go into these doggone stores, they've got to let the merchant know that they are expecting a label if possible, and they're expecting a union-made product. And that looks like just about probably as far as we can go until each individual industry lays out some form for specifying the label within itself.
Mr. Chairman, just one other remark, if I may. Yes. In listening to these discussions, these comments on this particular resolution, seems to me that the majority emphasis has been placed on the union's label. That's with no thought of any criticism, but yet, on the other hand, it seems to be a compliment that the people in the various fields that use the label have done a better job, maybe, in relation to the so-called shop card and service button. Now, as a member of the building trades, I'd like to have you know that we would appreciate the proper emphasis and the same emphasis being put on the asking whether or not the electrician and the plumber and steam fitter and the carpenter, especially the carpenter,
Mr. Chairman,
as to whether or not he's
gentleman out of order.
the union.
He's out of order.
I don't,
That's bad. That's unfortunate. There's no room for discussion of a shop card or button here.
I think if the gentleman is in order with the remarks he made, I'm not going to.
No, I think we should correct our program to put them in order.
Well, the resolution before the body, if you want to amend it, and certainly it's to be amended.
I merely had reference to the discussion that was going on here, and
This resolution is not in the kits, is it? This was one that Russ drafted and sent in, and we got it in kind of late, therefore it's not in the kits. We can amend it
I'm in accord with
and
it.
pull back the ones we have and put just what you said in the resolution if you'd like to.
I think it
Chairman.
should be there. Because we've had just the same discussion on use of carpenters and their homework here.
That's right, I agree. I
Right.
agree that we should be remindful of that just as much as the label, and it's very important.
Well, it's.
We could add another resolve down and probably take care of it a little bit. Probably easier.
Be the final resolve.
No, in between the further resolve. You make that last one final, you put a new one in there, be it further resolved that, that we encourage our people to use, union labor and so forth and so on.
Union services.
Union services.
Mr.
Let's let
Chairman, I say
Marvin, let's
one-
let Marvin draft us another resolve to go on that resolution.
I wouldn't ask you for any additional work.
No, it's gonna take but a minute.
You got it.
Huh? What?
The
Words in
word
there?
sufficient here, it said, in
Where?
the third whereas, the union label, shop card, and service button are
There you are.
established
Union
symbols
label,
of
shop
product.
You have a service button, don't you? Don't you have a,
So
Shop
this-
card.
Carry a card in it, of course.
This should.
well, it's same thing.
I was
The
thinking.
point I was trying to make though is this. I know that there are problems in this, and I know there are a lot of things that do not carry the union label because I've found that out in my going about trying to buy it. But I do know this also, I know that a lot of us are not particular about even, getting those things that we know are union made. That's the point I was trying to make. I wasn't trying to say that we can always buy union made goods because you can't. There are some things I don't think you can find in this town that are union made, or if they are, you don't know it. But what I was talking about, we go and we don't pay any attention to it. We just walk in and buy whatever they hand
That's
us.
the purpose of this resolution, is to keep it before the people. That's exactly what we present it. We do it every year. Keep drumming on this union label and shop card thing, because you'll always got new people around.
Paying off too.
It pays off, certainly it does. Now, Marvin, would you want to amend the resolution, or let it go like it is, and have somebody on the floor bring this up?
I was thinking here that, union label, shop card and service button probably, carried out the intent, which would
Yeah.
incorporate these items. And I was only calling attention to the
Yeah.
fact that the large part of the discussion has centered around the union
Right.
label
Right.
that we ordinarily look for in, the clothing industry. But, there are other products that,
Right. I think, if you don't want to
Barbershop
amend it, the
card.
appropriate thing to do, that you, when this resolution is presented, for you to take a few minutes on the convention floor on behalf of this resolution and point these things out that you have. Don't you people think this would be appropriate?
Well, even
Mr.
our-
Chairman,
our
is there a
business,
motion to amend in order?
No, there's a motion, well, there's
Our
a
business,
motion
I don't
to
think we
adopt,
have
of course, the motion to amend is in order.
I move that the title of this committee be changed to read and show that it is a committee of not only union label, but shop card and
Well, that wouldn't
And
be
that's,
in the resolution.
well, now, here's the
That's
point
different.
now. We've had enough battling here with our building trades group. And we have overlooked a good opportunity here to show them that we are recognizing their existence. And I think that should strictly be put in here now. Because that gives Brother Taylor, I believe it'd make him feel a little bit better if we had recognized that he had just as much recognition before this group, and that we're not going to force him to just understand that he's got it.
Well, what is your amendment?
That the committee be known as a union label and shop card, and what is the other, identifying and service button committee.
That's on your, list of committees, Claude, that's what he's talking about.
On the list of committees.
Oh, man, no wonder I was having so much trouble, buddy. I'm looking at the resolution, you're looking at the committee.
Well, I want to make our beginning there.
This should read here. This is just talking about purchases, it's not talking about anything. It should be before making any
Well, I
purchases.
think that's the
or
way it's
using
spelled out in
any
the doggone
services.
Constitution.
In other words, I go to hire a carpenter.
Union labor.
This doesn't even apply to me. I'm not making
That's the
any
way it's spelled out in the
purchases.
Constitution, requires the committee set up.
Services.
Union labor committee. That's the reason it's listed that way.
specifying
The
the.
chart, the card and the
I
service
believe
button is all right,
on
Dave.
the
That's about all
One
we've
word
got to
there,
show.
the intent of that
We'll raise that
union
question.
label in the Constitution, that would
Takes in it all, that takes
any
all.
identification with the union regardless of whether it's a
Union
label
label
or
services
a
and
card.
everything that goes with it.
Have we
Mr.
had some
Chairman,
dropping
there's-
out of our affiliates?
Hmm?
Where are the biggest dropping out of affiliates been?
I don't know where the biggest dropping out's been. We've got a number of building trades that never have been affiliated, not for a long time.
Yeah, well, if they look at our program here and look at our committee assignment, do you blame them?
I think instead of the committee assignments, that the resolution itself, should deal with the subject.
I'd like to offer, an amendment to the resolution, Mr. Chairman. That is in the therefore be it resolved section, where it reads that we continue to make use of this powerful weapon by asking to see the union label, shop card, and service button before making any purchases, that we also add are using any services. Because you're only talking about purchases there, and if I go to use his services over there, I'm not making a purchase other than purchasing maybe his time.
Well, let's get that exact where you want it to go right behind service button.
No, before making any purchases or using any services.
Or before using, we're making. any-
Or using any service, you already got the before.
Add that at the end, right? We're making any purchases or using any service.
Now, you taking our case over there, you couldn't,
You got that, Kevin? All right.
Claude, under your bylaws, can the executive board recommend a constitutional change?
Not now. No. 30 days, you see.
I'm thinking what Vaughn's had in mind there.
We can recommend this,
Well, the
thing here.
constitutional committee can.
The constitutional
take it. I
committee
mean,
can.
someone can go before them.
Well, Ray's here, he's chairman of it, he can take it up. That's what you think we got all these board members on each committee for.
how about this amendment?
Why don't we say I can add this on here when I read this out, Union Label and Services Committee.
Correct.
I'll make the announcement, Union Label and Service Committee. Now, if you all wanna come out with an amendment on the Constitution, yeah, we're not gonna pass this out. We're gonna make the announcement. We just provided copies here.
Constitutional amendment would give it more publicity in the convention. Than just
Right.
the name of the committee.
Right.
Ray, you make a note of this and take it.
Let's find where that is in the
We
Constitution.
got 3 members of the committee here, our president, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you got wood on there. All right, we have an amendment now to add using any services. Do we have any discussion on that amendment, further discussion?
I second the motion.
All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Now, on the resolution as amended. Do we have any further discussion?
Question.
Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so on. Now, we've asked Brother Marvin Taylor to draft a couple of resolutions. We've asked Brother Marvin Taylor to draft a resolution concerning Situs picketing, and he has also discussed with me this Tom Bigby waterway project. Thought it might be a good idea for us to also submit a resolution to the convention endorsing this project, you know what I mean, which was recently enacted in the legislature over here, which entails several states involved with federal funds and all this stuff, which will help to industrialize that section of the state. So at this time, I'm gonna ask Brother Marvin Taylor to read to you what you got first, the Situs picketing. The Situs picketing resolution, we don't have copies prepared, but if you adopt it, we'll have it numberographed and made available before it's presented, of course. Brother Taylor?
Whereas, ever since
In this floor discussion or somewhere, don't you think you ought to explain, because there are a lot of these people here.
Yeah.
that don't know what Silas Pickton is, what the ban against it is. And I think that this is a very important point. The fact that you can go out here and start a building, and you can employ one craft union out of maybe 10 or 15 that are employed in that building, and the other non-union workers, you can't put a picket there if this one craft union is employed.
That's right.
Well, I tell you, I think you're right, Dan. We need to get some discussion, explanation on this.
And in case you do, and the job is closed down, and they suffer some type of damages, or they can take you to court, and if so, you can be sued for any amount.
And some general contractors use that
That's right.
to protect their construction against organization.
That's right.
They'll go out and employ the smallest union, or the smallest number of craft workers, and then that blocks the union from organizing the rest of it.
And then by the time you get out of court, they got the building built and all.
Well, we've got Building Trades Group in Hattiesburg. It's been in court for some time now. They got it's an injunction case is what it is. It's headed for the state Supreme Court, centered around this same area. Unfortunately, we don't have any of them affiliated with us. We could get some of them to talk about that. But I think certainly, Marvin, this resolution, if we need some discussion on this thing, you might get a hold of Upton and somebody else out of this group that's familiar with it, and get them to also kind of elaborate on it.
We'll attempt to get some clarifying discussion on
Yeah.
the question.
I move the adoption of the resolution.
Any further discussion?
Question.
Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Now, we'll leave that resolution with the secretary, Ms. Phillips here, Marvin, and the first opportunity, if we get the convention rolling, when she or Ms. Martina one is available, we'll have them cut a stencil, numberograph that, and get it ready. Now, you have the other one, I believe.
This one has to do, as has been stated by President Ramsey, resolution on the Tennessee Tonbridge Waterway project. I was requested by one of the directors, who is Glover Wilkins, who was Carol Darton's campaign manager, and who is permanently employed as one of the directors on this project, to get up some kind of supporting action from this body. He had talked to our people in Washington, AFL-CIO, and they suggested that this begin at this level, and they would give sympathetic and active support to it if it came up to them through this route. And so this is largely in response to a request from Glover Wilkins, and Claude intimated we had talked it over too, and he was in accord with it, and I hope that you will be. The material on this thing was so voluminous until we had difficulty in boiling it down. It took quite a little work, but I think we've got it in proper language and has the, might say, the high points connected with the whole project as follows. Whereas the state's Senator Similar finally resolved that copies be furnished to George Meany, President of AFL-CIO, urging his personal and active support for the Tennessee Tonbridge project.
Now go back and start over on that reply part of it again. I want to hear that first part of it.
Be it therefore resolved that the Mississippi Labor Council, AFL-CIO, and Convention Assembly, April 23rd, 24th, 25th, go on record as heartily approving and endorsing this project.
Okay, now, what I'm wondering about here in this resolution, I think it's vital to mention anything about the legislative action recently on this.
I read an account of that in the paper, and that whole thing is so, to my way of thinking, so fragmentary, and I would say even to the point of misleading, until I think it would contribute toward a confusion of the proposition rather than the enlightenment.
And add to it.
And I would therefore suggest that that be not incorporated.
All right, fine. Just wanted to get you thinking on that. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
Second to adopt.
Motion to adopt the resolution. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, so ordered. You done a good job, Mr. Taylor. Now, do we have any other resolutions now to act on? You have one, Brother Clark? Right. Public relations?
Community relations.
Community relations.
What's the number? 18?
Well, let's see, the one, no,
We've
got, let's see,
We got that.
Yeah,
that's
that's
17, I think is the last number we got. The one person he's read would have been 18, the next one 19, wouldn't it? This one will be 20 now. We have some in here was submitted by other groups, you see what I mean? We numbered them as we run them off.
Subject, active community relations, with to the Public Relations Vice President of the Mississippi Labor Council by the Chairman of each Community Services Committee.
Move adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried, so ordered. Would you pass it down to the secretary? We'll prepare this one and memorandum it along with the rest of them as possibly right. This resolution is another one of these reaffirming deals we was talking about earlier. Now, it's 6:30. Took a little bit longer to get through this part of it than I had anticipated when we started. We've got a couple of other things that I need to bring your attention to. Unless you have some items to present at this meeting, then we should be able to wind up here by 7. Would you want to continue on, or you want to break up and come back?
You taking up an item on Claude Bruton?
That's one that we'll bring up.
By the way,
That's one.
Mr. Chairman, didn't you say you were gonna say which resolutions you were referring to?
Yes, that's right, I was gonna tell you
It'll
that.
take too much time, I think.
I'd like to run that through with you, and if you've got some other ideas, well, this is the time to say something about it. This particularly, the chairmans of these committees will be interested in knowing which ones they're gonna handle. 1 through 5 would be handled by the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. That's Brother Smithhart's. That's dealing with constitutional change. The Resolutions Committee would handle 6, 8, and 13. That's you, Gene. 6, 8, and 13. Legislative would handle 7 and 14. We're gonna have to make referrals on these new ones, we'll let you forget that. Social Security number 10. I believe that's Frida's, isn't it? We thought it would be a good idea to have one of my distinguished lady members handle that one on medical care. Number 11 by Public Relations and Education. We could have put that one in legislative, but that was the only one we had that we can put public relations, the one that Jim just named. What's the number of that one? 20? Put number 20 in public relations and education. Let's go back and get those that Marvin read. Let's see. Should just pick it and then put that in legislative. I think where that should go. What number was that? 18? And what was the other one, Tom Bailey? Put that in the resolution, I guess. 19?
17, 14, 18, 19.
We'll put 19 in legislative.
What was that on?
It's in support of the Tom Bailey project.
Legislative?
It could be.
I thought the Tom Bigby waterways was 17.
What was it,
No,
Tom?
we've got a,
No, it's 19.
We got a 17 here already. See, you don't have all of them because there's some submitted by local unions and central bodies that's got these numbers you're missing.
Let's
see, we
get
got-
that then. Picketing, what's the number on picketing?
18.
That's legislative. Now that goes to Jim's committee. Number 18 go to legislative. Now what was that other one? On Baker 19. Well, that could be handled by the resolutions or the legislative. Let's see we got 3 in each one of them. We can put that in the legislative. We might probably have some more to go into the resolution committee before it's over with anyhow.
I have 4 here in the oh, I see there was 3.
That's
before.
19. 19. Let's put 19 in the legislative. That meets your approval. All right, Social Security gets 10, Public Relations and Education 11 and 20. The Coke Committee gets number 12. Union Label number 15. That's the one on union shop card and so forth that we amended.
Now, what does Cope get?
Coke gets number 12. That's on the Women's Activities Department. That meets your approval? Okay.
Then you have one.
Now, where does 9 go?
organized.
9 organizing, 9, 16, and 17 goes to organizing.
9.
I don't know whether I call that out, I'll be on this set. 9, 16, and 17 goes to organizing.
And,
Of course, some of these are not in the kits, they come in after we had the kits back, they'll be passed out when they're brought up. So if you don't have them, the committee chairman, they're available in the foyer, the ones that we run off. Now, we've got a couple of items here that we need to discuss at this board meeting. And there's one particular situation that it's going to take quite a bit of time to go into. We had a meeting of the executive committee prior to this meeting to make a recommendation to you on a couple of items that are pretty important, you know. One of them centers around the Claude Bruton situation, or the labor's representative's position on the commission. I think most of you are familiar with where that situation is at the present time. And it's the committee's recommendation that this matter be taken up as a first order of business of the executive board after the convention. It's going to take considerable time to do that. We're going to have some changes in the makeup of the executive committee and the executive board. At least 2 positions will be filled on the committee. And there's a possibility that court action might result of this thing, which is going to mean the expenditure of considerable money. There might not be any of us around on this new board, you understand what I mean? So this matter we felt should be handled by the incoming executive board of the council. Now, if you'd like, I can go through this thing with you. Ones of you who are not familiar with it, where it is at the present time, but I have, I think, kept you fairly well up to date on it in the legislative report. There's a couple of things pending yet in the Senate that can have a definite bearing on the possibility of this situation. One of them centers around the salary increase of the commissioners, which if the salary increase is voted by the Senate, and the gentleman that was named by Barnett and such was confirmed by the Senate, if he remains a body of that, a member of that body, then it appears there might be possibility of a constitutional violation involved. That's one of them, but that hasn't occurred in the Senate yet. I've asked 2 attorneys, at least 2 of them, and the first time I get a chance, I'm going to ask another one to give us their opinions of this situation before we can act sensibly. We've got to know what the possibilities are. This is in the making already. But I feeling that this matter should be handled by the board after this thing. What's your, Brother Barnes?
Would it be possible for this group though to make a recommendation or take a stand so that there won't be a feeling through the convention that this board would like to shift the buck to a later group?
Yes, I don't see anything wrong with that. You can take a position on it now, if you want.
I feel we should take a position.
It's a must.
This board does?
All right then, I think you're right.
I think we should take a position.
Yes,
to,
because I think we'd have a cloud. We'd be operating the entire convention under a cloud, and we'd be subject to some interrupting influences that we don't need to have to have.
In other words, we were recommended to the incoming board, in case we're not the incoming board, that they take action on.
Recommended to the convention and let whoever's elected
Yes.
handle it from there.
Well, it might be the proper thing. I can see what you're talking about, and I think you're possibly right. Of course, we didn't have much time really to discuss this thing a while ago before we came down to it. Might be well if the board submitted a resolution suggesting that this matter be first order of business after this convention or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Pointing out our position and so forth. I don't know, whatever you think on this thing. It's a real important question involved.
Well, I think this board should look into three things. I think this board first should determine whether or not there is legal action possible. Second, do we have the finances to prosecute? Third, where can we get the money and how we're going to do it?
Of course, these are the questions that have crossed our minds over.
You get that I'm prejudiced, and I am. But I think that we should prosecute this thing and prosecute it hard.
Well, this is the property of the board. I think if we go into it, we're gonna have to figure this, that once it's undertaken, that we'll have to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, which means the expenditure of considerable amount of money. So the matter of finances first, I think, has to be considered above all else. I think it would be foolish for us to get involved in court, in a court suit and get part way and have to drop it. We'd probably do more damage than we would have otherwise. There's all kinds of possibilities involved in this situation. Looking at it from this angle, see what I'm talking about. The manufacturers have now named the labor's representative on the commission. That's, they can't make anything else out of it. It's that simple. I raised a question the other day to the manufacturer representative. I said, well, manufacturers have now named labor's representative to the commission. Do you see any reason why labor shouldn't, 2 years from now, name the employer's representative on the commission? He kind of grinned and walked off, but that's how simple this is. Now, I've reviewed this thing with the attorneys, several of them, at least two, and as I said, there's one more I want to go into it with. Wiesenberg is one I want to get his opinion of. I've discussed the thing with Jack Travis, who is the claimant, heads the Claimants Association in Mississippi, who is very close to Bruton and the labor movement in this area, very familiar with the act and everything else. I've asked him to submit his opinion as to what the possibilities were. I've asked Dixon Powell to do the same thing. I want to also get Wiesenberg's opinion on it. I haven't got any of these opinions yet. I don't think the board is in a position to act intelligently on this thing until we get what we think some opinions of a legal nature. This was one reason for making this suggestion to take it up later. We might want to call some attorneys in before the board. I haven't received that yet. Now, the other question is finances. That's above all else has to be considered. the language in the act is not as strong as what it should be. I'll grant you. I got a copy of the act here. If you'd like for me to read it to you, I will. The section dealing with the authority. But I think this is a real serious matter. It's going to have to be given serious consideration. I'm not so sure that the board's in a position to act on it at this time. What do you think about it, Jack?
I don't either, Claude. In fact, I couldn't think of a worse time for the board to take any action on it. In regards to Brother Barnes' remarks, I accept them well, but in face of the facts that we have, as far as I know, every board member is subject to re-election, if it's the will of the convention. If it's not the will of the convention, then they're elected people to carry on their business and continue in business. So I can't see that there would be any cloud in the convention over the matter, very frankly. We don't have anything to act on now.
I don't think you make a decision on it yet.
Well, what about, Mr. Chairman, some sort of a resolution, well, that's asking the convention to give a mandate to the board to carry this thing on. I mean, as far as finances are possible.
I intend to deal with this subject in my remarks tomorrow morning at the convention, at which time the press will be present. You know what I'm talking about?
One question.
Yeah.
Is Claude going to appear
On the program?
on the program?
Yes, he got him on the program. We ought to get kits out of him, and I guess we go out and get the board's kits, so.
The reason I asked the question.
Yes, I've got, I thought I might mention this to you. We had a workman's comp seminar at the University of Mississippi back here several months back. Some of you attended. Dealing with workman's compensation, and Bruton handled the rehabilitation phase of workman's compensation, which I doubt if there's two people in the state and our labor organizations recognize the fact that there's certain things involved in, as far as the injured worker is concerned, the Workmen's Compensation Act, that makes it necessary for the employer to rehabilitate the injured worker. Well, I put him on the program and asked him after that seminar, seeing the importance of this, to get it across to our people, this rehabilitation program. I wanted to put him on the program to go into this, at this convention. Of course, this happened way before all of this ever took place. You understand what I mean? I made this arrangement. It just so happened that this thing is where it is now. Even that, I don't see anything wrong with having him on the program, because he's an expert in this field. There's no question about it. I don't think there's anybody that understands it, including the chairman of the commission, any better than Bruton does.
They admit it.
Huh?
They want him off there too.
Huh?
That's the reason they're trying to get rid of him.
Oh yeah, that's the reason he got him on there. Now, I can review with you the things that's transpired in this thing if you would like. I think I've kept you fairly well posted in the report. Of course, you can't go into things in detail on one page of paper, you know. But this was a real job, ever getting Ross to submit Bruton's name the first time. This was a real accomplishment in itself. And I think all of you recognize that as being an accomplishment. Had it not been for the work of some of our friends in the Senate, we'd have never got it to send it down. And I'm not going to go into all details here, because I'd have to divulge some secrets, and I don't think you want to know about them. But this was how this was done. Well, it hadn't been there any time before the manufacturers and the insurance people went to work on him and started putting the pressure on him. And he wanted it back. So I called him up and made an appointment with him myself. This, the first time I called on him since he's been governor. As a matter of fact, the first time I know he did catch me in the hall that one day and wring my hand like I never got away from him. But anyhow, the first time I'd approached him, I went in and laid the cards on the table to him what this situation was. And I thought I'd made some pretty good progress with him. I pointed this out to him, that this was labor's position, the working people's position on the commission. that the people that was objecting to his appointment were the manufacturers and the insurance people. Of course, I pointed out the job he had done and all of this stuff to him. And I told him, I said, now, Governor, it's this simple. Let's reverse the thing. Should this be the employer's position open on the commission, how would you feel if Labor was to start a campaign asking you not to appoint their member of the commission? I said, we've never asked that favor. We've never tried to influence anybody when it comes to appointing the employer's representative. By the same token, we don't think that the employers and the insurance people should now be trying to name the representative that's going to represent employees. See? Well, as I said before, I thought that he had come around some. So I felt the time was appropriate now to get a statement out on this question. I wrote Ross a letter about the meeting I'd had with him, worked up what I thought was a pretty good statement, released to the press about my meeting with him and what I thought he would do. I carried that thing over and delivered it myself to the reporters. And one of them told me, he said, why, he sent the request down this morning, wanting it back. See? Well, my timing there was off. I heard he wasn't going to do anything about it till about Wednesday, anyhow. And the purpose of the statement in the letter was actually nullified by his action already. Well, this thing got to the point that they had the nomination down. They had his request to get it back. The Senate did. So we kept it blocked up there. They put the request to send it back in the Judicial Committee where we've got some good friends, and they sat on the thing as long as they could, giving us an opportunity to build up some strength and support to kill the thing, refused to send it back. And Bruton and myself sat down the night before this came up in the Senate. This was when, a week ago this past Wednesday. And according to what he knew and what I knew, we had enough votes, we felt like, to refuse to send it back. See? Well, they went into an executive session the next day, and no one knew that when they was going to take it up. I didn't know until about the middle of that session that it was going to come off. So I immediately started to contacting some senators that I knew were friends of ours to make sure they was going to be there when they went into session. I got some friends of ours that's in the House to start contacting their senators to make sure they were there. You know, but we'd have that vote. Well, when they went into executive session, they run everybody out. I wasn't around to see what happened. But I got this from a reliable source, that Hayden Campbell, a senator from Hinds County, who is Bruton's home senator, is the guy that runs. He got up and made a speech to the effect that he thought the governor ought to have it sent back and things of this kind. And Jack and I talked about this quite a bit. And of course, Jack and I have talked about it quite extensively all the way through this thing. This is, I think, what the straw that broke the camel's back. The fact that Bruton's own senator is the guy that got up and delivered on this kind of a situation. Senators, as a rule, look at these things pretty good. Well, they voted to send the thing back to him. And at no time have they ever come to me, I'm talking about a representative of Ross now, and asked us to submit somebody else. Ross himself in the meeting wanted me to name anybody but Bruton. And I told him I came in to talk to him about Bruton. He had been on this thing all this time, and this was all I came to talk to him about, nobody else. There was a number of senators during this period of time came to me and told me that if we would select somebody else, they assured me that they would receive the nomination. And I refused to take them up on it. You see what I mean? Because I felt all the way that there was still a possibility of getting him renominated. This was quite an expense, fellas and ladies. I'll tell you right now, this went on for weeks and weeks, and I'll never put any more time into any one project than this thing right here. And we had to actually, on several occasions, walk around on eggs to keep from jeopardizing something else over here on account of this. This is the position that a lot of our friends found themselves in the Senate. You see what I mean? By sitting on this thing, they were getting their brains beat out on some other issues in the Senate. So this is the reason it had to come out as it did. Now, They had some senators that went in to see Ross about it. He offered it to each. You see? Now, we're not kidding ourselves a bit here. This is going to be a terrific job. It's going to take a real selling job to put it over. But I'll tell you what I'm convinced of. That this administration, in the last few months, has done a good job of educating our people as to the need of some positive action. And I believe that now is the appropriate time for us to go into a real educational program and present to them a program that they can get behind and get the job done. I'm convinced of that, because this group down at this convention was just about as solid and their willingness to move forward as any group that I've ever seen. I'm convinced of that. And all I think they need is some real positive leadership and given a program to go along with, and I think we can put it over. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman?
May I say one other thing here, Claude? Okay. First, in considering this, I want you to disassociate in your minds completely this $1 a year resolution that you always pass. The benefit of that is for this fight on right to work right now.
Right.
Now, what your chances are of winning that, I don't know. I'm not too optimistic about it. This legislature's kicked you in the teeth. This administration has kicked you in the teeth. You are not going to get anything out of this legislature. If you had $500,000 down here, it's doubtful if you could get anything out of this legislature.
Yeah.
You're not talking to your people about this legislature or this government. What you're aiming for with this program is a 1963 election.
Yeah.
You're beginning now. You're beginning 3 years ahead of time. You're aiming for the 1964 legislature. This has to be kept in mind. We can't get anything out of this legislature. But we've got to begin now. If we don't, in 1964, we're going to be in the same position that we're in today.
Worse. They've got all the advantages, and this is going to multiply.
If you remember what Shanahan told you,
It's going here on the floor over
Yeah,
the other day. But it was started back 4 years ago. The program that they passed.
Now, you're going to have a
2 years.
reaction against this administration over the state.
Well, that's what I was referring to, Dan, that this administration, I believe, is going to do more to wake our people up to the need of a positive program. And I think that now is the time for us to get in there and put the thing over. Because that is going to be a big help in itself. This big setback we've had, and before this is over with, we're going to really witness something in the state. I'm convinced of that.
Yesterday's action is gonna help us school teachers.
What did they do yesterday? I ain't even read it. I just got a paper that I see teacher salary compromise rejected.
Yeah,
So what
House
does
rejected the Senate's compromise bill.
the House did?
Well,
get our resolution.
But 1963, you can have the teachers in alliance with you. You have something in your 10-point legislative program for the teachers, see? You have them in alliance with you over the state. You can build a coalition here. If you get the money and you get your plans ready, you can build a coalition here that will carry you in the best position you've ever been in the legislature in this state.
Some of the teachers in the state are talking to us about organizing and getting into the AFL-CIO right
And
now.
I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna chew Lige Williams about making that statement on the hall down there the other day. I sent Lige over that meeting, you know. And here he gets out here, makes a public statement, and by Georgia, I'm surprised that the press ain't slammed it all over the place yet. I shouldn't have mentioned that down there in that convention.
I heard about it.
Huh?
I heard about
He
it.
shouldn't have said that down there.
Well, they didn't quote it,
They, huh?
They didn't
So
quote it.
far, they haven't quoted him. We've been lucky on him. I swear we've been lucky, huh?
Just forgot.
No, hell,
But that thing is getting right, Bob. That ain't the only group. We got several more around here, and this is going to break the camel's back right here.
If it'll keep on like that, it certainly will.
Certainly will. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, the thing now, the way you go on this, if you want to go, and that's up to you, I'm willing to do it. You agree to go on, then I will sit down with your officers, and we will go over a tentative legislative program that we think should be the heart of this push for 1963. I'll write you prospectus, just as I did in Alabama. We'll put it in prospectus form. We'll develop our timetable for district meetings. We'll develop our timetable for the special convention. early next year, the first 3 or 4 months of next year. And we'll get underway with the same thing that I am certain is going to be passed for the October convention of the Alabama Labor Council.
In other words, if any bugs in it, we could iron it out too.
And at all times as you go along, this thing is so planned. We have a report sheet here at the office that's filled out after contacting the executive board members. We know exactly where we stand on this. We know how many votes we've got on the board. We did in Alabama. We know what the reaction is going to be in these district meetings. And when we begin to go before the local unions, we begin to count delegates.
Okay, Fred?
Can this literature be provided to us to carry back to our people? Speaking for myself, I'm going to have a message and a program to present to them in order to ask them for the dollar in hopes of getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And by your own statement, when the people have a sound program presented to them, they're willing to pay for it. But I don't feel that I would have any success in getting money without a sound program to present to them before at the time that I ask.
Yeah, Freddie, in answer to your question, there's a leaflet, a folding leaflet. I don't have one with me now, which is a condensation of what we've got in this prospectus. The prospectus is complete and never detailed. This leaflet carries a 10-point legislative program. It carries a brief summary on how we're going to put this into effect. It carries a brief summary of the COPE program, the public relations program, and the legislative action program. This goes to the membership. You don't have to go into your local union and sell this thing. In the first place, you don't even talk about it until we've got the prospectus drawn and the board has passed it. Then we set up district meetings over the state where we bring in presidents and secretaries. We present it to them. We don't ask them for any action. After we present it to them, then we line up the local union meetings that we're going to. And we go into the local union meeting. We talk with the officers of the local before the meeting. We get it set up. We'd like to have a person on the floor that we know after we finish presenting the program is going to get up and move at the local sports programs.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You stated a while ago, I believe, if I understood correctly, that after these district meetings, you go into the local unions of 200 and above members. What happens to the smaller local unions? They're going to have to.
The reason we set that figure, what we did, we sat down and we took
got a lot up.
We took the total possible vote in the conventions. Where
You'd
we
be
get a
dropped in this
66
state.
and 2/3% vote. This is a minimum vote we can pass.
We could drop it.
We don't need in Alabama a 2/3 vote to amend the Constitution because it's an amendment to the Constitution. We need a majority. But we don't want to sell this thing with a majority. 66 and 2/3 is the smallest we're going to sell it. We found that if we went into local unions of 200 members or more, that we'd have nearly 75 to 80% of the delegates. We don't go into the others because there's not time. We feel even we're not going into them, we will get some break in the vote there. It will not be solid against it. And as a rule, it's the little locals that are the most progressive because they're closer together. Where you generally have your trouble is in these big locals.
Well, in other words, then, the point I was trying to make, if you go into the big locals with a program, then the officers of the small locals will be given the information and the opportunity to go before their locals and sell the programs themselves to their locals.
Yeah, we don't
That's
say to the officers not to do this. We encourage them to do it, but we say to the officers of locals of 200 or more, you don't have to put your neck on the block. We'll come in and present the program.
What he's talking about, Bert, is that we go into the locals ourselves of 200 or better. On the district meetings and all the officers of all the locals are in these meetings. The only thing about it is what they're attempting to do here is to convince enough people themselves by going into their meeting to put the program over. And depend on the officers of the smaller locals themselves are putting the program over.
They'll be given.
You can't hardly get around to all of them, you know, that's what I think that's the approach to it, see.
District meetings are made up from
Yeah.
small.
Everybody's in the district meetings, but he's talking about attending membership meetings, period. See?
Yeah,
that's
smaller
right.
locals will be given the information
Certainly.
that they can go and sell their membership.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be in these district meetings. That's where you make the contact.
Those members.
Huh?
The district meeting will be made up out of those local.
Sure. Of all the locals in the district.
Say after the prospectus is prepared, with the prospectus will be a timetable for selling the program, just as we've included here in the front, where we set out each step for selling the program. When that is prepared and presented back here to a meeting, then a special convention will be called well in advance of the convention. Notices will be sent out that there will be a special convention about the time that we begin the district meetings. So that these district meetings will be telling them what the special convention is about. But we will set the special convention far enough ahead to give us time not only to get into the district meetings, but into the larger locals.
You might explain to them too, like in Alabama, they have something around 500 affiliated local unions, Bert. You can't go into that many. You see, the situation is different in state to state.
Well, you couldn't go into all of them here very well. You take a good while.
Well, the figure here might be different from 200, but the thing is, the idea is you want to get a percentage, and of course you want to get
Of course, I mean,
more
he's telling
people
you-
at one time, but.
Yeah, what he's telling you here is in Alabama, they sit down and figured out what the membership was, and in order to do the best job, 200 or
Was the
better was
figure.
the figure set. In Mississippi, it might be different. All right, Keene, what you got on your mind?
I was waiting for you to get back to me, and I see you're not going to, so.
Yeah, we can tell you now.
Yeah, but I didn't get the hand up. Now, we want to remember two incidents that have recently happened. One of our districts went into the congressional race. They made their plans there. They thought that they were strictly among friends. They found out that there was someone there who was not their friend, and sought to give the opposition every bit of the ammunition that our group in that district had to try and win a battle over. Now, we have some new members on the board who I don't want to think that it's being thrown in their direction. But what I'm driving at is that we have never had anybody on this board that I know of to deliberately betray the board or give anything out. But I think that anything that should come from this board, or anything that we've discussed with our friends on this program, should be held up until we have something to do, until we have something to say that is agreed on by the entire group. Now, we've had a program or two that we've sought to implement and put into effect, and it has ended up with 2 or 3 or 1 person doing the job. There has been some criticism of others, and there's been some criticism of that person, because they didn't think they got the proper support, and the people generally have reacted to that end that you wouldn't let us support you. So now this program here cannot be carried out by the Executive Council alone. The Secretary and the President can't do this job themselves. It's going to take the 15 as a group to do it. So I don't think that we should start out to implement it and carry it out by the Executive Council or the group that lives in Jackson that is easily accessible. I think we should have an understanding in the very beginning that this is a job for the 15 and not for a selected accessible group. When I mean accessible, they can get together easy. We're going to have to forget the idea of calling on the people or the person who can get to the office quickest and easiest, or most often, to do the job. These people here, these 15, are the 15 people from the whole state of Mississippi, that these 50,000 are 20, I figure some 18,000 people were represented at this convention this year. Well, those 20,000 people have selected these 15 to represent them. So I believe these 15 can go back to those 20,000 people and come near getting the dollars that are necessary to put this program over. So I want us to think about using the 15 and using the 15 completely and all the way. And then the 15 to think that we're not going to let this thing drop in the laps of the President, the Secretary of Treasury, and the legislative representatives. And for God's sake, don't let somebody else have our program and let this fella Hill tell about us in turn ledger first.
Well, let me say this, Brother Barnes. I don't have any reservations about the situation myself. I recognize the seriousness of the problems that we have. And recognizing the fact that we had a job to do, and in order that the people might understand beyond a question of doubt what they could expect out of me, if you recall, I called a caucus of the business agents and of the principal officers of the Central Labor Union and so forth, and put them on notice that if they did not want to go in such a program as this, that I preferred they not re-elect me as president of the council. Now, the reason I did that is simply that I fully intended, if I went back into office, to make a very concerted effort towards putting in effect such a program. And I didn't want them to come back and say I caught them with their pants down. I wanted them to know it in advance. You see what I'm talking about? Therefore, I'm not worried about any criticism myself, because I put them on notice already, so don't try to defend me if that's what you're trying to do. Now,
no, I'm not trying to defend you. I don't want you to let this thing drop in
all right, now
your
listen.
lap here,
Now
and
listen.
you then come up here, then if you put it blunt, come up here next year and say, well, we too did the best we could.
All right, now listen. This is the approach that'll have to be taken to it if you're gonna follow it out. Your executive officers will have to sit down with Dan and work the program up and work it out. Then we'll have to call a meeting of the executive board and review the whole prospects with you people. It'll be up to all of us then to put the program over, the full 15-member board. It'll be up to each and every board member to go into every local union that he can, after we work out the plans, to help sell the program. And it's certainly going to be a project for everybody after we once get the thing on the way. You agree with that, don't you? And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Now then, we are already working on it down there close to home. We're getting that Harrison County Central Labor Union to work. It's going to take things like that. We've got to get those organizations active and back moving again.
Now, did you raise your hand,
Yeah.
Mr. Schaefer?
I'll make a motion, the program be adopted in the sequence as outlined by the chairman. Follow.
Motion is that the program be adopted. What I gather there, that you refer this matter to the executive council to work up, bring back to the board.
Chairman,
That's
we
been
already
outlined.
have such a motion adopted, don't we?
No, there hasn't been a motion.
I included the educational program in my move that I made for the,
Well, I thought we was,
We'll
at
get
that
another
time,
to
it
make
was
it
on the
clear.
right to work
Get
on
two of
it,
them.
a different project.
I
Well, I mean, that's just that I construed it. Well, the motion is that the program be adopted and put into effect as has been presented, which everybody understands.
Like the sequence as you outlined.
Sequence has been outlined here. We have any further discussion on the matter now?
Let me say this, Paul.
Okay, Dan.
What I presented to you here was not the Mississippi program.
I understand that.
I presented an example of Alabama. Now, we don't know, it may be $1, it may be more. We've got to figure out what we need, see. The points, the legislative points will not be the same that was in here, because you've got to fit it to the needs of the state.
That's right.
But one thing, let me caution you against, do not go out here and talk about this. Don't mention what you've done here today. Wait till we get this down and get it back before the board. Because it will be fatal to go out here now and say, well, we're going to set up $1 a year assessment for a political action, public relations legislative program.
I don't think that you can worry about what this board will do in that respect, Dan, and I think that everybody here has fully understood what the temp's gonna be, that this thing here was merely used as an example of the type program that we had to develop. That's clear, isn't it, everybody's mind?
Yeah, only one clarification I might bring out here. There was a specific question asked about this donation that we have now enacted in our present convention. And the answer Dan given to that question was the fact that he had just a handbill outlining the highlights. I think we ought to probably Dan misunderstood the answer or the question that he gave. Really, the program that we're going to want to push this present dollar with, of course, is the right to work at the present time, and not highlights of this program.
That's right. This program here has nothing to do with the resolution that was adopted. The dollar there we'll use the right to work proposition to raise, in other words, get the dollar out of our membership as far as possible, help to defeat this right to work constitutional amendment with.
That's right.
We'll leave the rest of this out of the picture for the time being.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, Don.
as I understand the motion now is that actually we start to work on this program, to work up a program to fit this state. We are not adopting this program at this time.
That's right.
Exactly.
We're adopting this type of program.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing if this motion passes is telling your executive officers to develop you a program, work you up a program, and when that program is developed, call you back in session and present that program to you, and if the board at that time adopts it, then we'll go to work on it. That's what will be done if this motion passes.
And remember this, it's going to take time now.
Yes.
This is not gonna be ready for you next month.
It's
gonna take time to work this thing out. It took 3 months to work out this, prospectus in Alabama.
I think everyone understands what we're trying to do here. Any further discussion? Steve?
Well, Chairman, I just like to say, I'd like for us to get this in operation as soon as we can.
Soon as
Get
possible.
an effort made toward that program as soon as possible.
Well, I certainly assure you if the motion passes, that it certainly will be.
Include everybody.
Can't be too soon, can it? Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
For the Holloway.
it seems that we've always found that we got started too late in everything. So the sooner we can start, as his brother said over there, the better.
Amen. Any further discussion?
4 years late already.
Yeah. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Brother Secretary, you can now start the work.
Now that one comment, now that the motion has passed, that I think a lot of us, we might just think about at this time, I think we can increase our affiliation of this council tremendously with such a program that, along at the same time of working on our already affiliation, I believe that program.
I believe you're absolutely right. I think that's what you got. Situation was in advance. Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, about me appearing before that committee to present our views in opposition to this appointment. But we were denied that opportunity even. You see what I mean?
Put this on balanced tone. This is what we turn it on, we'll put it on balanced tone. And I did, see this right here. See that like normal and distort, when it's on this side, on this half, that's normal speaking voice, and that means we're taping it. That shows you, if you didn't have something to know, you wouldn't really know where you was picking that up, you know, maybe. But that shows you're taping that, what we're seeing right now is going on there. I can turn this up like that, and you see how it's getting on both sides? Oh, that's too much. That's distorting, and it's loud that it's loud to be overshadowing your whole tape.
and you're supposed to always keep your light figuring just on one half. In other words, you see that? See right here, come in, look at that.
Yeah, I
Normal,
see.
just start, and when it goes over on up, that means you got it too loud. Somebody, maybe you'll be taping along and everything will be going fine, and somebody with a big voice will come in there and talk real loud, you know, like some people do. Well, that thing will blast off way over here, and to keep that from like when you're transcribing it, for that man to blast in your ear like that, you rush and because you have to keep it, touch your volume down, you know, touch down to his voice, you know, and that's when you tape, when you're taping, you're always you're checking your footage if somebody new comes on, you always write his name down, the footage come on, and this story, you keep this balanced. And that's the only thing you're doing when you're taping is making sure you're taping, you're getting it on there, and keeping it at a normal taping thing, and watching your footage, and that's all you do.
I can't commit the labor movement to you or anybody else. I said we're committed to the man that's on the commission. And I think you understand that we are going to do everything we can to retain the present member. That we plan to do. And that's the way I left it with him. Wasn't anything else I could tell him. So since as I told you before, I've asked these attorneys to give me their opinions on this thing. And you got the cost involved, you got to think about possibilities of what you can win. And if we'll see, I don't know who will be on the board or anything about it, who eventually winds the thing up. If court action's not there, we've got a doggone good political weapon to use. I'll tell you that from here on in, because we've had an awful lot of sympathy and support generated on this thing, people outside the labor movement. They all think it's an outrage. That's what it is.
Thought I asked a question whether or not he was going to appear, thinking that if he was, that would give you an opening to the convention to make remarks in regards to.
Well, give me, I'll have two chances to make the remarks. One will be in introducing him, and the other one will be in my remarks, and I think probably in the introduction of him is the place that I should go into this. I don't know. Well, there won't be any doubt in anybody's mind is where we stand on this.
I think that should be good enough, then, we want, as far as,
Yeah.
so, we operating under a cloud, people will know that we intend to do.
I think this is
Well,
one
I haven't
thing.
heard yet, though, that we intend to do anything about it. All I've heard is what we've done. Let's get the facts down. I've heard what has been done. I've heard that there's been 2 legal briefs have been asked to be presented as to the situation legally, and that there is a 3rd one to be asked for. But what is yours and what is Jack's opinion? Is this man qualified to represent labor on that commission?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's not a labor representative, period.
In my harsh remarks to Hayden after his daily activities condemning law or affecting his appointment, he asked me who the possibility was. I said, well, as many rumors as been flying, certainly you know. Why don't you tell me? He said, well, I've heard Bob Everett, but certainly he's not qualified. Yet, they get a unanimous vote confirming the appointment.
And he presented Everett's name.
No, he's the guy that
He's the one that actually killed Bruton.
Bruton sent it back to Ross.
Oh, he's the one that carried the motion through to return to the governor.
He seconded the motion with his speech.
That was Bauer's senator, didn't
Yeah.
Well, it's been something, I'll tell you.
This was one thing that the labor movement in this state was solid behind. There's no question in my mind that people that have their differences with Bruton otherwise went into this thing 100% and pushed it. I don't know of a soul in the labor movement that didn't do everything they could towards getting him renominated. I really don't on this whole thing all the way through. You fellas agree with that? Do any of you know of any cases or anybody that
I don't know.
No, now do you know of any movement in the labor movement that wouldn't want to prosecute the movement further to see that he's retained.
No, sir, I don't. I haven't heard any remarks in that direction. Of course, I haven't been able to get too far away from this thing with the legislature session. I haven't
Well,
talked.
you've got pretty good representation of the state here.
Question here now.
Yeah.
The court suit might be brought against Bob Everett and not being qualified. But that's still, see, when they say he is not, he say, well, Ross will have to submit another name. They don't compel Ross to submit, Bob Bruton's name back, so he can pick up somebody else just as bad as Bob Everett may work. The only thing you've done is said that Ross can't appoint Bob Everett.
Well, that would be true, and then it would also, say that he would have to appoint somebody that is qualified.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'd be foolish enough to appoint another one, like Everett if we were to win in the court suit, but it still wouldn't mean that Claude would be reappointed, and frankly, I don't,
Well,
just between us, I don't
well,
think
that,
Claude will be. I don't think he'll
Not
ever
as
be.
long as Ross is governor.
That's what I mean.
Possibly, you
I don't
see,
think-
the governor's got he's the guy in the whole thing, he's the key to the whole thing. The appointment has to first come through him. Then it's confirmed by the Senate. Now, we had the votes in the Senate, but they got his objections removed. We had the votes to confirm it. A lot of these people would have voted to confirm it and voted to send it back to him because they felt the governor ought to give his right. But with Ross Barnett governor, I'm convinced myself that he'll never submit Claude Bruton again.
No.
Not Ross.
You're
Well,
right.
is it a possibility of getting an injunction barring this Everett serving? And, of course, it depends on how long the injunction holds.
Well, of course, that's what
Maybe
that's
Ross
what
Barnett would be out by the time.
yes, that's what the
When is-
move would have to be.
When is
Would
Bruton's
be on
time
the
up?
basis of an injunction, which of course would be a matter.
Next January,
Proceed on
8
that
more
thing.
months.
He serves till when?
January next year.
January of next year.
January 64.
No, 63.
64. He got elected governor in 60, he was nominated in 64.
Oh, we're talking about Bruton's term,
Bruton,
not
yeah.
the governor.
Mr. Chairman, would the opinion of the Attorney General be worth anything in this particular case?
Yes, and I answered
He's
that. I
already
failed to
submitted.
mention that I've already talked to the Attorney General. I didn't mention this in my remarks. I'm glad you brought that out. I've further inquired as to whether he submitted an opinion. Now, I talked with him a couple of weeks before this happened. I'd heard he had, and he told me that he hadn't sent Ross an opinion. But he said, under the language of the act, he thought that he could put just about who he wanted to on there. That's what he told me personally. And I even went and asked one of the assistant attorney generals, who done us a favor on a couple of occasions, Neil Spurgeon, to write me an opinion. But he says, no, I can't do that. Now, I was trying to get a favorable opinion.
You expected more out of this.
So that's that situation.
Well, that means they've discussed the problem
Oh,
then,
yes.
and the Attorney General's office has,
Well, I don't mind telling you in my
Come in.
conversations with the two attorneys that I've talked to, including Jack Travis, and I haven't I talked to Wiesenberg about the situation, and he was very much disturbed about it. He thought we ought to try to do something right. That's one reason I want to get his opinion. But of the two that I've talked to, just in my conversation, they tell me that it'd be a tough one to win in courts. That's the reason I want to get another third. That includes Jack Travis.
Well, Jack, if
If there's anybody should
Any
have this
chance
thing in
Jack
heart, it ought to
would do
be
it.
Jack Travis. That's the reason I asked
Sure.
Jack the question, see?
Well, let me ask this, are there any cases, any previous decisions been rendered on a situation of that nature in any other state?
Not on this thing here. There's one in Mississippi, and I can't remember what it was. Nixon's trying to tell me something about a situation that developed back here sometime on another appointment. But I can't seem to recall that situation.
well, now you thinking about a Star Chamber appointment?
Might have been.
I see, that was Cullen,
I believe that's the one.
and I believe that Stanton Hall
Yeah.
led the revolt, and of courted the governor's opportunity of having a Star Chamber session. But they couldn't go in, wouldn't let them go into our executive session and consider it.
So let me raise the question of strategy again. Suppose you went into a court case and were successful in blocking this guy's appointment. Now, the governor comes back and he appoints a guy that's qualified, but it's not proven. See, and for someone that you're not as happy with is proven.
Yeah.
Then your case is gone.
Right.
On the other hand, if this guy stays on,
Yeah.
you get a favorable governor in 63.
Yeah.
Bruton is still marvelous.
Right.
This governor then could appoint Bruton to the manufacturers.
Well, that's exactly what I said a while ago. That's what I told them over there anyway.
Now, you got to remember this, Claude. You know yourself that the governor's got 2 or 3 members of organized labor that he owes a debt, and that 1 or 2 of them that would like to have the job. And I believe they can just about get it if ever it loses, and I wouldn't be surprised if that isn't where they're headed already.
I think they got another guy picked up.
And then your case is gone.
And brother, if they get one of them,
there's a guy from Meridian. Well, this is all part of it. All of these things have been analyzed and considered. Guy, a lawyer, Williamson, over at Lester Williams, Meridian. He's the next man in line for the job, and he'll fulfill the qualifications, as I understand, because he has been a member of a union. He's got a labor background. Looking at all the possibilities, there's something else to consider in this thing. The fact that old man Everett's about 62 or 3 years old, he's interested in retirement. And he'll probably be retiring when he's 65. Whereas if you got a young man in there like Williamson, the possibility of ever getting Bruton back on the board would be just about nil. That would be about it. There's all of these things will have to be considered. And the first thing, of course, is finances when you go into court. You know what I'm talking about. We can do ourselves more harm by going into court and losing it, or going into court halfway and stopping, and we could using this thing as a political one.
Mr. Chairman, I've been listening to all this discussion, and personally, I'm of the opinion, and certainly if anybody wants to do anything for Claude Bruton, it's me, because he's been my close personal friend over a great number of years, even though I do differ with him on some things. I would think that the best policy for us to follow here is to let this thing lie for the time being. We don't have anything any definite steps that we know to take. Right. And I'd rather not take any steps than to take steps in the dark. And I think we should just let this thing lie until after the convention. You're going to have plenty to say about it. I imagine some others will have some things to say about it. And it will be plenty live when the convention's over, and then we can decide, or whoever is on the board can decide if they have any action that they can take. Now, certainly, just because we want to take action doesn't necessarily mean that we should. We might do more harm than. So I would suggest that we let this thing lie just like it is until after the convention. Unless it would be possible for us just to in some way give our support to Claude, and I think everybody knows that's already, we've already done that. I don't think there's any question about that. So my suggestion, just let it fly, just like it is.
Well, you
think that Claude would feel like if we
in
were
the minutes that this matter will be
well, I don't know.
Consideration.
He asked me a question here. Now, I don't know what Claude would think about it, Barnes.
Okay.
I'm not thinking about it in terms of what Claude would think about it or what anybody else would think about it. I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of what might be the better thing to do. I don't ask Claude what he thinks about everything that I want to do, even if it does affect him. Neither would he ask me. But I'm certain that Claude would want us to do the thing that we think is the best. I'm certain of that.
Well, I've kept him posted and consulted with him all the way through on this thing, all the way through. You know what I'm talking about. But the situation entails more than just Claude Group.
Oh,
The
sure.
situation entails a lot more than just one individual. It's something that's gonna have to be a lot of careful consideration put into. I don't think that we're in a position yet to make a decision. We've got to have more. There's some things in the middle yet in the Senate. In addition to the salary increase. The boys wouldn't let me in on it, but they got a few other things that they got up their sleeve over there. We don't know, just this thing has to gel and develop a little bit more. I think before we can really make a decision. And I think it's gonna happen this week.
In other words, then, the deck hasn't been dealt out yet.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead.
Well, we want, full
Well, I
deal.
couldn't expect you to make an intelligent decision. You own this thing without having a good discussion and going into it, getting it all out, because, it is rather complicated and a lot's involved. There's no question about that.
Well, let me ask this, is the feeling of this group that the intent of the law was to have equal representation from the
Yeah.
public and then from industry and labor? I think that's the most important issue involved, it's just the fact that, you don't have a recognized representative from labor there, recognized as a laboring man. And if they get away with a deal like this, why, sooner or later, it could all be industry or all from the public. Neither one could have a representative on our.
Well, I think
all be
this,
one.
Honest opinion, it's gonna take a change.
frankly, I think this,
We
that
can all say,
if the chances
this, that, and the
of
other.
a lawsuit
That's fine.
would hinge on, our success in a lawsuit would hinge on
Give me
the
three.
fact of the qualification of the person, and not necessarily on the fact of us having the right to name it, to name the person. Well, then I believe that our case would be lost, even though that we won the case, the way I see it. Of course, I would be reluctant to make that decision until all the facts or all the cards were on the table, but especially at this stage of the game, that would be my trend of thought on the subject matter. And I think for the present time, especially, and as much as all the cards are not on the table, all the facts are not known, well then, for that reason, more so than the reason that there might be some board members replaced, well, we should refer action until all of the information is obtained. I think it's probably that simple.
What you just got to say. Well, let me read you the language of the act. I don't know how many of you heard it already. Then you'll understand it, I think, better. I'm just gonna read you what it says about the number. One member shall be a person who by reason of his previous vocation or affiliation can be classed as a representative of employers, and one shall be a person who by reason of his previous vocation or affiliation can be classed as a representative of employees. I don't say labor, it's a representative of employees.
It says can too.
Yeah, and it says can. One member shall be an attorney at law of recognized ability with at least 5 years' practice in Mississippi prior to his appointment. It goes on to say the governor should designate.
Now, it doesn't say which of the three shall be a lawyer.
No. They've
Well,
got two
Now, you
lawyers
left
on
out
it.
one statement there, Claude, that I think was important. Who makes the appointment?
The governor. The governor makes all the appointments.
Where does that, that's under?
The governor shall designate the chairman of the commission whose term of chairman shall run concurrently with his appointment as a commissioner. I can go back up here. I didn't read all of the act dealing.
But I mean, no, but there's one point that should be cleared up there. There is a misconstruction that is getting around now, and that is that, because Fielding Wright, I believe, made the original appointment.
Right.
Because he went to Mr. Starnes and one or two others and asked them to recommend a member of organized labor for this job, and Claude was. there's some feeling that that is the law,
Yeah.
but that is a past practice of one action, and it's not the law. So I believe if you'd read the law on that there, that who would make the appointment.
It says the governor shall appoint the members of the commission by and with the consent of the Mississippi Senate. That's what it says.
All right, nobody's going to choose any member but him.
Yeah, well, it's just strictly his baby. See, this is what we're talking about when you start talking about court action, as to what you got actually in the law. We think that the thing was intended to have a representative of labor, employers, and one of the general public. See?
Are there any records available on the debate on that point when the law was passed?
Of course, that's something we're gonna have to check out.
So that's the only place you can show intent.
1949 is when the act was.
And that's our only hope, to have clause, and to find what the intent was.
You got to have records available on the debate.
That wouldn't have clause.
The act was passed.
Governor would still have a right to appoint somebody else.
He'd still have a right to.
He's not gonna appoint law.
They don't keep a printed record of the discussion, or they might have it on tape over there. When they had the recording system in effect and the tapes back, that's why I don't know, but they don't keep a printed record, a shorthand record of debate discussion on the floor on an act over there. That's not available. I've checked on that, and that depends on whether they tape the sessions, you know what I mean? Possibly if they might have had a tape recorder back then, would have it on record. Well, what do you want to do with the thing? You want to defer action on it as suggested here by a couple of people?
I move we defer action.
I second the motion.
Motion is that we defer action on the Bruton situation. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known to say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Well, I underestimate these people here about how long it takes to get something over with here. You can't never tell just how long one of these things take. I told you 7 o'clock, we still got one other item that we need to have some discussion on. And this one can probably take up considerable time in itself. So depending on what happens here as to when you get out now, if you're getting pretty hungry, then.
Mr. Chairman, let me say this. It's hard to get this group together.
Yeah.
We haven't been together.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is a meeting of coconut.
Mm-hmm.
This is our life. And I don't, personally now, don't hurry up anything. I guess I've got about much to feed as anybody here. So if you want to use me as a criteria.
I got plenty of time to say if we don't have
I'd rather
anything
go
else
into
to
it
switch.
now.
All right. That's the pleasure of the board.
I favor that.
I guess if any of them gets hungry, they know we always walk out and go get them a hamburger.
Well, I'm already hungry now, as far as that goes.
Well, I was hungry when I got here. That's all.
I played a
Well-
trick on you and they got up here.
Let's kick it off here and get the
Now you're talking.
get the thing started. We've got some reports and have heard some discussion about the fact that there would be a move made in the convention to lower the dues, dedicated assessment and so forth, at this convention. We discussed this thing briefly with the State Committee. Didn't have time again to give this too much thought. I've called Stanton Smith, the coordinator of the state and central bodies, talked with him a little bit on the phone about what the possibilities were from the national level. I wrote him a letter not too long back, several months ago, more or less to the effect that it appeared that I, as a matter of necessity because of the financial situation, wouldn't be able to accept the office of president again on a full-time basis. At that particular time, when we sent out the affiliation, we had a number of groups that had not come through. he wrote me back a letter to this effect that, he had took the thing up with me and that, they would try to do something to help us out. That's what he told me at that time. So when we got to the word, I felt that I should call him again, discuss the matter with him. I wanted to know from him what, if anything, could be done from that level in the event an effort was made to reduce the burden here. And he assured me that they would do everything they could. Now, just how far this goes, I don't know. So we was wondering what position the board should take, if we should make a recommendation, something along the lines of probably reducing it down to about 20 cents, eliminate the dedicated assessment, put it strictly on a dues basis. If we did, if we do make any such move, we're not in a position to submit a resolution of constitutional change. It would strictly have to be done in this fashion, in my opinion. For the board to instruct me to appear before the Constitution and Bylaws Committee and tell them what the board's position was on something. Because as I interpret the Constitution and as it was enforced at the Vicksburg Convention, constitutional change from a local union, us or anybody else, has to be submitted at least 30 days prior to the convention, which we submitted several, and they were sent out according to the Constitution of the local union, so they'll know what constitutional changes we're in the making. Therefore, the committee, the Constitution Bylaws Committee, under the Constitution, is the only group that can submit a change in the Constitution to this convention. I just want to mention this to you. It was thought by the executive committee, when we kicked this thing around a little bit while ago, that we were not in a position, actually, to make a decision one way or the other before we knew what we could reasonably expect from Stanton Smith. Now, he'll be in here when? Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. It was kind of big. We kind of left that thing. What did we decide there a while ago? That we would,
Well, it was the opinion of the committee probably to talk with him. About it, I think, or maybe.
Might ask him to appear before a meeting of the executive board, maybe. We could call a meeting of the board who got a series of meetings. But I think that the board is going to have to stand in a position, as we always do, of course, at conventions, of having to go into a meeting on something of this kind. So I'm going to throw this out for you from discussion here to see what you think.
Well, actually, we can't, if we lower it, we can't operate without assistance. And so, I mean, huh?
Or more affiliates.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Something, in other words, if we've gotta get more affiliates, which I don't believe, that will bring in more affiliates, in my own opinion. Not.
I don't either, I agree with you.
So, actually, the only thing is, can we operate or can't we operate? Now, it's up to Stanton Smith, whether we can lower it.
Well, that says we, as you know, being a member of the executive committee, that says we viewed it there a while ago. We're not in a position. We've done some figuring on the thing. The affiliation picture is better now than it was at one time. We're in a little bit better shape now than we were when we sent out the last standings of affiliates. Been several local unions that have come through. But we're still down to what we were at the special convention, roughly about 2,000, 2,500. Affiliation figure now is right around 20,000. Tom got the books down and done some figuring here the other day, and trying to figure out what our outstanding obligations were. Trying to figure about what the normal expenses would be incurred in, what they would be. And as the situation stands now with the present affiliation, the council can operate about as it is operating, which leaves nothing for future program. That means that next year, the elections for the legislature and so forth, there won't be $40,000 available to put in the campaign. That's how simple that is. Now, of course, the key to this whole thing is affiliations. That's the reason we got this resolution in here. The reason we keep raising sand about it. The question here is, will lowering the per capita tax bring these groups in or not? Our experience already has been this, that we've been able to pick up several local unions, even since the special convention. Not in the real large ones, but nevertheless, we picked up several. By the same token, we've had several go out the back door when we bring a new one in the front door. Unfortunately, we've lost one large local union because of problems. The Boilermakers, Pascagoula, Gene, you're familiar with that. They're under trusteeship right now. They've assured me that once they get their organization back in the hands of the people, that they will be back in here with us, but that's not helping us now.
But this, organization here though, Brother Ramsey, has nothing to do with their profit.
No, that's very true. Very true.
I know some of them might gather, you know, that it was our program here.
Well, that's internal.
Might have picked them, but it didn't.
Problems with the international union.
It's an internal
No, it's
problem.
in their own union.
We've had several meetings, of course, and your board, we had, at least the board was in one, and had it not been for the financial situation, we would have called the board in for the second one, but we just felt that we didn't have the money there to call the board in for that one. That was the two meetings we called of the international reps and business agents, reviewing organization problems mostly, but at both of those meetings, we went into this affiliation problem rather extensively. And we're getting some better cooperation as a result of that, and I think it's going to eventually pay off. But it's simple to me, this matter of getting these people into this organization is so big, so many of them involved, we've got to have the cooperation of these international reps if we're going to get the job done. Now, I think you know what the situation's been for the past few months, particularly after the special convention. It took us several months to try to get everything set up in these local areas, which meant that Tom or myself, either one, could spend any time in local unions on the affiliation problem. Well, we didn't get that through with before the first of the year, and at the first of the year, then I had to confine myself right here on top of this legislature. See what I mean? And he had to go pick up and try to finish this other thing up. So this has been the type of a situation. He and I haven't had the time to get into the field to work on the affiliating problem. So the result is today we've got slightly less than 20,000 affiliated, with the threat that there'll probably be some more get out.
And you've actually lost about 2,000?
2,500 since the special convention. Of course, out of this group there, we might as well explore that for what it is. Out of the group we had there, most of them, I don't say all of them, most of them were the local unions that were always right on the verge of being delinquent. We had several in that area. See what I'm talking about?
Well, then you've had quite a bit of unemployment in your,
Oh, yes, that's
in your
involved.
craft trades. I mean, it's a lot of things. Plus the Boilermakers is one big local because of internal trouble.
Well, man, yeah. I think Stanton will be the first person to tell you, if you talk to him tomorrow, that the amount of per capita tax of itself does not encourage affiliation or disaffiliation. In other words, the lowering your per capita tax, you don't get affiliation. By raising it, you don't automatically get disaffiliation. The sort of program that the council is doing is a determinant factor in affiliation. Now, in this program of progress, in every one of the states, there's what is known as a dead period. That dead period is from the time it's adopted, when you're going through the process of setting up your cause and you're organizing your committee. When you get to your first election. Your first election is where you're going to see you get results or not get results. Now, if you're successful, if you get results in these things, those that have, in this dead period, that have fallen on the wayside, a great majority are coming back in. Because people want to be affiliated with a successful going organization that's doing something. Now in Alabama, we've had a drop off of about 10,000 during a dead period. If they're successful in the legislature over there and getting some good legislation,
I think they're gonna get that back and more. In Tennessee, where it was adopted after it was down here, during this dead period, it's gonna drop off of about 5,000. But in every one of these states, and I believe it's true here in Mississippi too, though I haven't looked local, disaffiliated, in every one of these states, those who have dropped out have been the local unions that the program was not presented to. In none of the other states can I think of a case where we've lost a local union that the program was presented in that local union meeting. Now in Arkansas, we're going for $1.50 a year. They're calling a special convention in July. The officers over there and the executive board, their plan is this: to get as many locals as they can before the convention, and then immediately following the convention, to get into the rest of the locals. They don't believe they will lose any of them. In fact, in presenting the program so far, they've picked up about 3,000 members. Now, every other council in the country today, instead of dropping its per capita tax, is raising it. Louisiana, 2 or 3 weeks ago, raised their per capita tax without any program at all, just because they needed the money to operate, from 20 to 25 cents. Nevada, Louisiana's got 67,000 members. You've got about 20,000. If Louisiana needs 67,000 members, they need 25 cents to operate. How are you going to operate here with 20,000 members with only 20 cents? Now, you've been getting assistance in the past from Stanton, National AFL-CIO, also from National Code. That assistance came because you were exhibiting in the wilderness down here to help yourself. It seems to me that reducing your dedicated assessment from 22.5 to 20 cents is not your answer. You're going to get even more trouble because you're not going to be able to carry out any part, a part of the program that was adopted. You're going to be short on money. It seems that elimination and temporary assistance get by and try to put the program into effect rather than reducing the per capita taxes against it.
May I make one more statement? Frankly, I don't believe that for a quarter of my union dues, I get any more service out of my international or my local union than I do my quarter's worth right here. I mean, my quarter goes for more than that $4 that I pay out of my $4 union dues. That's quarter means more to me than what my international services may or my local. I mean, it does that much more for me. And frankly, I think a quarter per month per member is, and I'm saying that's more than we're paying.
I mean,
but
that's
I say
a quarter, Jim. You giving us more.
no, well, what I'm saying, use the figure of a quarter. For a quarter, you can't find a better bargain.
But Mr. Chairman, he's not our problem though. What's your basic hourly rate?
$4. Oh, well, I'm talking about that's the due structure.
What's your basic hourly rate?
My basic got $2.85.
$2.85. Our problem is with that vast majority of people in this state here whose basic rate is what, Frida?
From $1.15 to $1.25.
There's our problem, man.
$1.20. This is not talking about this one. What I'm talking about, what is their due structure?
Well, with that little earnings, what do you think the due structure couldn't be getting more than $3?
It's not the due structure, it's the basic hourly rate.
No, I know it's a local can't operate except on what due structure they have. I know we've got girls that's in the lower income. But even at that, regardless, frankly, I don't believe I'm paying enough in union dues, and I don't believe I'm paying enough to the state council. I believe the higher ones, if it was some way to get it on high, what a man made, I'd be willing to pay my share. But I mean, I can't get everybody to work it out.
At least you can convince that Masonite bunch, get that kind of attitude, Jim.
Our loss on this program has not been from the low dues structure unions.
No, sir.
Our loss on this program in the other states has been from the high dues structure locals. For example, in Alabama, the greatest loss has come to steel workers, who are the highest hourly paid workers over there.
Well, I thought we ought to have this thing out here and get your thinking on it as to what should be done. The problem that we've got is with the low-paid workers that we're talking about. This is where the complaints are coming from. And certainly they've got a justifiable complaint when they look around them and see these high-wage people not affiliated with the Labor Council, and you can't blame them for being offended about it. I bet. I don't, see. Now, our problem, of course, is affiliation. There's no question about that. If we had the local unions in this state affiliated, we could do the job a lot cheaper. Now, as I view the situation here now, I'm responsible, I guess, more than any other single individual for us being in this position. Wouldn't you say, Freda?
Oh, I don't.
Because the board decided to put me on the staff on a full-time basis, and this was probably the worst mistake I ever made in my life. Because they felt, and I felt at that time, that with another full-time person on the staff, that we could do something with the organization and actually build it up. Well, the results don't speak that way. Not at this particular time, they don't. I'm a little bit hopeful that some of the things we've been doing will eventually pay off. But this much I know at this particular time. If we're forced now to reduce dues in this convention, and we don't get any subsidy anyplace else, there won't be anything else left to do but for me to resign, and well, I start to say resign and not run for re-election. One of the two, because the election comes up shortly. That decision might be made for somebody else. But the council won't be able to afford 2 full-time men. That's how simple it is to me. We are not going to be able, as it is now, to carry on the program that we adopted in its entirety. See, even as it stands now. This affiliation thing is the key to the whole thing. Now, whether or not a small reduction will help, I don't know. You know what your situation is.
I don't
Claude
know.
does. Let me speak my opinion on that. I don't think 15-cent reduction will get any more people in here. I mean, I don't think that's the answer to it. I'm kinda like Dan. We're gonna have to show the people that we are doing a good job, and I think we're gonna have to get to the membership instead of the officers of some of these local unions. Now, through the mailing setup that we got, we can do that. And it's going to take time. Now, I don't think this board should take a position on decreasing the dues at all. If we have a fight on the floor, well, we'll just fight it out. If they get them decreased, we'll still say we should have this money. I don't think we should recommend a decrease.
I'm inclined to go along with him, Claude. I mean, basing it on this, from what you said there, and I believe it, that you and Thomas have both been running your legs off. In fact, I know you have. Well, if we go ahead and lower the dues, and it boils down to where there wouldn't be but one of you, where in the world would we be then?
Get back where you
All
were.
this time and effort that we put in,
Yeah.
we should have been off somewhere over here on what is Big Eagle Lake. I like Bramstead.
I'm gonna go around the table, let each one of you have your say.
Well, I agree with the two speakers just before me and with Dan. I don't think that lowering the dues is the answer, and I believe this too. I know that the results to date don't show too much progress, but I believe firmly that if we continue with this program, even though it might be on a curtail basis for a while, maybe we can't do the things that we set out to do and that we wanted to do. I believe though that eventually it will catch on, especially if we can just win one big victory somewhere. And I personally would not take a stand on, I would not take a position that we ought to lower the dues. I wouldn't do that at all, because I fought that out there before. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who are not in too good shape because of low wages, and that's the thing we're getting this program going for, is to help people like that. Where are we going to be if we keep retrenching those people? Never will get anything. And, I don't get too much either. Our wage structure isn't too great either. But by golly, I believe in putting some money into this thing and trying to get some results, and I think we can if we'll just don't lose faith too quick. I haven't lost faith in it. I get a little discouraged sometimes when I look at those figures, but,
All right, Gene, you want it, son?
Well, I tell you, you're getting down to where I live. We've got some affiliations because of our program. Now, Claude can leave room if he wants to. Might be best for him to leave the room. But one selling point that we've got in this program now is Claude Ramsey. He's honest, he's energetic, he's sensible, he's a good labor man. And that's what we've got to have to sell for affiliation. And Claude and Tom are not the people to sell the affiliation. You and you and you and you and me and him and him and him. We the people who got to sell this affiliation here. I know from a little experience in it that I can sell him a hell of a lot better, excuse me, I can sell him a whole lot better in the second person than he can sell himself to those people because he's already sold the first job. And then I can come along and do the secondary job and we can get the job done. Personally, I think some of us are falling down on the job. Now, there's some of you that are working hard at it. Some of us are not. We need some coordination somewhere to get these affiliations in because I know they're there and I know they can be brought in because I've seen them brought in. Now, you've got to have a close coordination with international. Now, who cut that resolution that I sent back up here? I don't know. But somebody had to build them a soapbox, so they got on it, and that's the resolution you've got. But the resolution I sent up here was an organizing resolution. That was one where the international said they would come in here and help us get some affiliation. So now the guy that got on the soapbox, now I'll let him have the floor next and tell us why he wanted a soapbox in there. But we have got to go to these people and tell them that we've got a program here and that we've got some officers that we're proud of and that they'll be proud to be a member of the organization with us. Some of them are ready to come in when they find out we're the same thing. Some of them don't even know we're all the same thing. They don't know that Claude Ramsey, the legislative program up here, our legislative letter. How many of you used your legislative letter in trying to sell affiliation?
Read in my meeting.
That's one of the best things in the world. When you're going out to this union that's not affiliated, is to use that letter with him and let him read that to his membership. They can't get that information anywhere else. And that man that's interested in selling affiliation in his union can take that and he can do something with it. Looks to me like we just need a little organizing done on the board.
Need a little organizing in the organization.
Here.
I'm talking about the board here. This board.
I'll discuss this soapbox phase of that resolution with you later on.
Yeah, I figured maybe you would. I heard it before resolution.
I said later on, this, one of the big problems here was that I couldn't fully understand what you was trying to do, so I just took that thing and did what I thought ought to be done with. Okay, W.A.?
Well, I don't have too much comment on this, situation that we're in, other than to say that these low-wage groups, I think, have done the very best they could in selling the affiliation to their own international. And I think they've come through with their obligation, even though they opposed it in the first place. And I don't believe there's a one that hasn't trying to do their very best in selling the affiliation, the program, with the intent of getting more affiliation. And the trouble that we find, or that I have found personally, is that you can't get in to meet the people and these other organizations that are not affiliated. Now, how we can get in there, I don't know. But you can't get into their meetings and they won't talk to you about it.
Brother.
That's very true. I found that.
Well, can I make a suggestion, Brother Ramsey?
They just said, we're not interested, and you can take your program and go straight to, that's just how plain and simple they are. And there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, that's wrong with the program. I think it should have been taken up 25 years ago in this state, and I think we're that far behind with the program. And the finances, I think, and affiliation is the key to the whole thing. Lowering the dues, I don't know that that's going to help affiliation at all. It may relieve the burden of some of the small locals, but I really and truly don't believe it's going to bring any affiliation by lowering.
Yeah.
I more or less made my statement, except one thing. I wanted to relieve Brother Barnes's mind, since I'm from there, that I think has the largest group unaffiliated. I have been working, and I came to this organizing meeting, and I learned something on how to organize. So I'm going to use the same approach that an organizer uses on a company. I'm going to go to the membership and try to organize them from that end. I'm working my way in slowly. I don't know how long it'll take me, but I'll assure you I'll eventually get it.
That's the only way you can do it.
Well, I'm using that approach, not only on that one union, but on all the rest of them.
You
I'm
got
going
to
behind
drink with 'em?
their back and contacting the membership, and I believe, and I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but eventually I'll have it.
You got to drink with them, you got
Wait a minute, we're gonna take it one at a time now. Everybody's gonna get a change. All right, Freda.
Well, all that I can add to the discussion, Brother Stevens said pretty much what I can say. I will say that I service two small locals, one in Louisville and one in Macon, and their treasury is getting very low. They have been paying their dedicated tax and their per capita tax faithfully, and I'm sure they'll continue to do it as long as they can, but I don't know how long they can, because they have their overhead expense that amounts to almost as much as a larger local. And the local in Meridian is pretty good size, and they're managing all right. They'll make it. But I'm just wondering, I would hate to see the thing lowered in as much as we need more than what we're getting. We have such a big job to do. But I'm wondering if there's any thing that we could do to relieve the smaller locals. I'm like the rest of the people that perhaps lowering them wouldn't get you any more affiliates. But is there anything that could be done to relieve the smaller locals when they get into such a financial situation that they can't carry the load any longer?
Well, of course, in answer to that question, you asking me the question?
I'm putting it before the group for general discussion.
Well, the Constitution gives the executive committee the authority to exempt payment of capital tax in certain cases.
That's
what I'm talking
emergencies
about,
or
which
strikes
depends
and
on the
plant shutdowns.
Make you understand that
Yes,
thing
sir.
there. All right, Brother Goodman.
After Gene sat over and pointed his finger at me like he did, I don't know whether I can say anything or not, but up to this point, I hadn't seen where a mistake was made when we adopted the $1.50 dedicated assessment. Until I do, I would not be willing to retract any part of it. So my position is that we're not in position, or we would not improve our condition by retracting any part of it at this time. I agree with everything you said, Jim, about the
You're not
affiliation. I'll go right along with you. I also agree with Stevens here about being a problem to get into some of the local units too. that problem is our job to work.
Marvin?
We are faced somewhat, find ourselves somewhat in a similar situation to come up with some answers here in about 30 or 40 minutes that the Mississippi State Legislature has been wrestling with for about 16 weeks.
Right. Right, very true.
I think we need to look at this thing from the positive side, as has been intimated, not so much on the negative side that we can't do this, or this is too much money, but to attempt to justify the program on the basis of the required amount of money that it will take. I remember when that we might need to go back to some of the arguments that we used in the first place in pointing out how small a number $1.50 is per year. Somebody said 5 packages of cigarettes cost $1.50. 10 cups of coffee cost $1.50. One trip to Grenada Lake will cost from $5 to $15. And one plug that you throw over there and miscast and hang will cost $1.50 or $2.50. So, taking some of those things into consideration, I think that largely should put us on the road to some of the answers. Period.
Mr. Kelly.
No, I don't have anything to add except Mr. Barnes was talking to me too. I think I'm even on the committee in AFL-CIO to help get more of the locals affiliated. So I'll go back and see if I can help organize our committee and see if we can.
I'll tell you one thing, Doris and Bert, a couple more of them doing a real job in here with the hard file and women's group. I just want to pass that on to you here.
Bert might want to make a report on that too.
Ray and I, when we started this round robin, we didn't start, we missed you.
Well, I started off raising it.
Oh, you want to raise it?
Talking about raising it. We ain't got enough money, there ain't no, you can't get money with cutting it, so what's raising it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe that's the thing, maybe the board ought to propose an increase then.
well, that's what I'm getting around to. No, I'm part of the program, and I know it's got to be financed. And that 22.5 cents that we pay is not much. It looks like a lot. If you go to a small local union, we might say, well, what's that mean? That means 30 cents a year if you cut out the 20 cents. You got 100 members. That's $30 you save in a local union. Now, what a local union can do with $30? No, if people's gonna go in a hole or going in the red, that 2.5 cents ain't gonna pull them out, for you don't have $30 in a whole year. So it don't make much sense to me, say you cut the thing 2.5 cents for a small local, because they wouldn't benefit by it. Now, if it's a large local with 1,000 members, he would have $300. He could send a delegate to a convention or international convention, or he could have a party or something. It might make sense for a large local union to argue that point, that he can get by. But a small local union, it don't make no sense to going into the kitty, because he would never have that. $30 for 100 members in a year to cut it 2.5 cents. So I don't think, in other words, your affiliation where the dues is 22.5 cents, or if it's 5 cents. You're gonna have to sell this the membership for these local unions, the officers. Of course, I know some, like they said, you can't get to it. But I believe every local union you go in and present this program to with a view graph machine with the things that's going on in this legislation, the things that we propose, I believe you'll get 75% of these local unions affiliated. And I understand here there's not been any of the local unions dropped out that this program's been presented to. So the problem is now we've got to get somebody on the road to present that program to them. Of course, the Claude tied up here, it'd probably be till June, but after then, I think they all get on the road and go into these local unions and present this program to them. And I believe that'll solve our problem here. It's not to, man, we can't cut no 2.5 cents off of it and do anything, because we ain't got enough money now. We gotta have more money. And in other words, to get affiliations, go in there with this program, with the
geographic machine, I think it has a big bearing than just somebody standing up talking to you. If you can see something on the board, you know, if it's done like I am, you're talking to it and you see it, you know, it's finally get through your head. And I think that's what we need, is get something on the board, they can see some figures, and then talk to them, and I believe we can come out of this thing. I'm not far backing up, I'm going forward, if it takes another nickel or something on it, I'm violently opposed to cutting this per capita tax anyway. Well, it ain't gonna hit that little local union. Someone mentioned a local union with 12 members dropped out. Well, they didn't drop out on like 2.5 cents, it wouldn't mean nothing to them. They could even buy them a Coca-Cola at the end of the year if it dropped out, every one of them, they couldn't do it. Now, a big local union might make a little sense, you know, because it would have several dollars, but a little local union ain't. It ain't the 22.5 cents, the way I see it. Definitely don't think.
Now, that's a question.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was stated that these locals did drop out here. I mean, the ones that did drop out here were ones that the program hadn't been presented to. I believe Brother Dan said that in some states it was that way. May I ask this question? Do you know whether or not
I asked Tom the same question there a few minutes ago, if he could recall of any local union that the program had been presented to that had dropped out. Personally, I don't think so.
Well, I just overheard
There's a
that.
possibility
That's
that
the
it
reason
might
I
have
mentioned
been,
it.
but I wouldn't want to make a positive statement about that. See what I mean?
could you, is there any way you could find out? I mean,
Yeah, we can go back and check the dropouts, and we can tell you right off the bat whether we.
well, at some future meeting, I think maybe that should be.
Yeah, I personally don't think that we've had a dropout where the program's been presented. Now, we've had some affiliations as a result of the presentation, we've had help. And I think Ray, put his finger smack on it, the problem is getting into the local unions. The rank and file, my experience up to this point has been this, that you might have some officers of the local union, because of certain situations that don't want to get their group affiliated, but if you can get this thing across to the rank and file, they'll go with you every time they'll go with you.
So in that connection, that was what he was saying about working on rank and file members, if we could compile a mailing list of rank and file members of unions that are not affiliated, and start mailing to them, urging them to get their locals to affiliate, this would be one phase of what Barnes and Clark are talking about.
Well, now, that would have to come from the international, wouldn't it?
No, wherever you can get the names. For example, if Clark could furnish us names of people in the woodworkers locals down there. What's to prevent the state council from putting them on the mailing list and urging them to get their locals to affiliate?
Trouble about getting those lists, though, Dan, if the international would furnish them, that'd be well and good.
Well, the international ain't gonna do it.
Well,
The only way you can pick them up piece by piece.
actually, you wouldn't have to get the whole list. I think what he's talking about, all that you could get, even if you didn't get but a half a dozen, and that whole bunch down there, that'd be a starting
Here's a
point.
local union of 200 members, you get 10 names, start mailing them over a period of time, see? You're gonna have somebody get up on that floor and say, look, why is this local union affiliated? I move we affiliate with the state council.
Well, of course, I think some angles that can be worked here myself. I might relate to you something that happened here at this last meeting of reps that we had. Some of you were present at that meeting, but this was the one where we couldn't invite the whole board. We had this to happen, and some people really got embarrassed in this meeting, and I think some good will come of it eventually. We had the president of two central bodies in this meeting, whose local unions were not affiliated with the state organization. One of them was Robert Fly from Natchez, the other one was this boy Stewart from Law. And I think that we're going to get the rubber workers in Natchez eventually, because they had a young fellow here with him that was a secretary that had quite a chat with me about the situation and got an affiliation bank. And Ray reported there a while ago that Fly thinks there's a good possibility before long we'll have them in here with us. The Stewart boy from Laurel down there, he also come talk to me about this situation, explain their problem down there. So I think this is going to eventually pay off. I don't think it's gonna be tomorrow, anything like that, but we're making some progress in this area. But the fact remains that the present situation is the one we've got to be disturbed about. And we're faced with this thing here now.
I might say these two groups, it's not the money situation that keeps them out either. Both of them got plenty of money.
Well, this thing of did to the membership is a problem. I have an example of my local union darn near got into red on this doggone thing, and the membership had endorsed that blame program and instructed the delegates to support it at the convention. The financial secretary was at the convention and supported the program, was on the committee that brought the resolutions out, and he just wouldn't write the doggone check. And I made him mad at me before he'd ever write the check and send it in after all of that. So it's your officers, the local, that's keeping most of these people out, I see.
That's very true. That's very true.
Well, let me raise one question. Are there any way of getting some of these international vice presidents to, since most of them are on the executive board of the AFL-CIO, or a good majority of them are, looks like the national organization could put some pressure on these locals we've got here in the state, because the Constitution definitely spells out that they should affiliate with the various local area labor organizations, and why they can't require them to come in here.
I could expound at length on that subject for you.
Well, I'm
How?
pretty sure
I
you
think
can.
now's the place for you to read the resolution, Claude, that I sent back to you.
Think that's.
They ought to
not
know
getting
what that
enough help.
resolution says.
The one adopted at the convention.
Yeah.
Just not
This was
getting
one
enough
presented
help.
by the council officers at the Miami convention. I agree with you 100%, and if we're gonna get mad at anybody, this is where I think we ought to go. And brother, I expounded on this subject several times myself in our meetings. You ought to hear Gus Show from Michigan get on it. If you think this ain't a hot subject in those AFL-CIO convention, you ought to get around this
I've been
sometime.
reading some of the articles.
Well, I'll tell you right now, brother, they have been getting told off about it, and it's getting rather uncomfortable for some of them. Now, this is our situation right here now. This is how simple it is, and I think we ought to acknowledge it. And if the opportunity presents itself to any of you, that you should let these people, these international unions, vice presidents and so forth, know about it. The AFL-CIO primarily is made up of international unions. They set the policy, draft the programs that the labor movement will abide by. See? 90% of those programs are placed in the hands of laps of the state councils, the central bodies, for implementation. Right? Yet we find that these same international unions are themselves negligent, carrying out the rest of their responsibility to see that these operations are properly financed. Now, this is what we've been debating up here for years, see, at least since I've been around. And if we got a bone to pick, I think the place we're going to have to start picking that bone is with these international unions that their membership's not affiliated. See, of course, we've been picking it with them. It's paying off to a certain point, see.
Very frankly, that to me is the most important thing that I think should be done with this organization here in the state, is to try to build a fire under some of that group in Washington.
Right.
Because some of those guys are actually keeping locals from coming into this organization.
Well, I'll agree with you up to a certain point with some of them. See?
I said some of them.
Now, let me give you something here to chew on. This like we're gonna be here the rest of the night anyhow. We might as well do
Might as well
it.
be here somewhere else.
Let me give you an example of what the kind of problems we run into here. And these AFL-CIO conventions, resolutions are continually being adopted to drop the race barriers and things of this kind, eliminate the discrimination barriers, things of this kind. Mandates are adopted at the convention directing us as to what policies to follow See, yet we find that the local unions that are made up of colored people in this state are some of the ones that's so doggone hard to affiliate with it. Now, I've personally come in contact with this problem, and I've told these colored gentlemen, if there ever was an organization that they ought to be a part of, it's a state labor organization. Then how in the world do they expect to accomplish some of these things if they're not going to be a part of the organization? Come in, Brother Holloway.
Better late than never. The old Georgia cracker, huh?
Yeah.
Nothing bad.
I figured if Gene Barnes was gonna be here on time, I could get
The Georgia cracker.
Well, you are lucky we're still here. We've been trying to adjourn for the last 2 hours, and Gene won't let us.
I get see everybody together.
Yeah, we in the middle of a discussion on the affiliation problem, as usual, KM, and have had a pretty good discussion on the subject. I didn't mean to get started there like I did on this thing, but the more I get involved in this thing, the more disturbed I get, because it's an outrage. It really is. I had to leave the convention in Miami before this subject got up, and I guess it's just as well, because I would have probably made a complete ass out of myself when it did come up. But Stanton Smith is doing a good job. You ought to remember this, that office was created at the San Francisco Convention a little over 2 years ago because of this problem. See, this is the reason this office was set up. Stan's been doing a pretty doggone good job, and the heat's being applied from the top. If the AFL-CIO has to start subsidizing a few of these councils like this one, don't you think they ain't gonna start getting on some people down here about getting in the organization where they don't have to subsidize it? You see what I mean? Tom, you said you wanted to say something?
Well, of course, I think everything's been pretty well covered, Claude. The one thing that the board don't know, I don't imagine, because this has all happened since the board met. The executive committee knows about it. The reference to some of these logos that are out. After the official convention call went out, of course, we had 13 logos that were in doubt. They were not in good standing as of that time to participate in this convention. Under instructions from the executive committee, I wrote these locals a letter. Not 13 copies of one letter, but 13 different letters. And extended the convention calls to them and pointed out what our records showed with regard to their payment of per capita and dedicated assessment, sent their credentials, and pointed out to them that the executive committee was going above and beyond the constitutional requirements and extending, you might say, a long arm to them. And not the first one of that 13 even thought enough to answer my letter, let alone square up, and told them that we hoped that they would be in a position to correct the situation. Not the first letter that we got. If they got them, we know nothing about it. Actually, Claude and I, as I see it, are the ones that are on the spot. We're charged with the responsibility of implementing this program. Something we haven't got anything to implement it with. We are a country mile right now, if you'll excuse the expression, from having the money that we are supposed to have. We have already lost the $40,000 allocated to us for the political action, and 3,000 besides, if we don't pick up some momentum somewhere. So that's the situation. It's real disturbing. I'm real discouraged with the situation. Naturally, being my job to receive and disburse the funds of this organization according to the provision of the Constitution, and it's real discouraged. I've been real disappointed in some of the people that come to this convention and hollered and hooped and raised Cain, and now they've slid out. Won't even answer your correspondence. It's real discouraging.
Brother Tom, you know, in some cases where you send those letters out to the local divisions, I know this to be a fact. if it goes to the secretary, in some cases, that secretary doesn't even bother to even let the president know he got the letter. It's never read at the meeting. Now, I don't know how we're gonna correct that situation, but I know it does happen
Yeah,
because
that's
it's happened
true.
in mine.
That's true, Bert.
And I don't even know it. If I wasn't on the executive board, there's a lot of things I wouldn't even know about. And it's true in some others. I don't know, maybe you could send it to, maybe the other officers, or at least one of the other officers too.
Well,
Be sure
before
that they
we,
get it. I don't know.
naturally, you know, the policy over the years has been to, with our old mailing list as we had it, then to maintain the name and address of the president and either your secretary, treasurer, finance secretary, whatever you want to call it, or your recording secretary. Well, of course, we still try to maintain this list of officers separate, naturally. And we try, when we start sending out something of importance that we really need some response, you know what I mean? We attempt to check our list and check all available information and send it to the one of those chief officers that we feel we got the most current address. And of course, that's what we've done. And I certainly felt that we would at least get a cussing out, if nothing else, from some of them. But they don't even think enough of us to do that. They wouldn't even write back and say, well, you can go to hell. We're just not fooling with the council no more. As I say, the executive committee has stretched the Constitution all over Mississippi. If it was rubber, you could hang one end on a tree in Whitehaven, Tennessee, and the other end on the Gulf of Mexico. That's what the executive committee of this council has done in its attempt to keep the labor movement united.
We come up for re-election, what's your statement?
The board, you ought to know that, and I think it's something that they'll concur in. And it's just facts, I mean, it's not, junk. It's facts.
How many of those 13 are in Jackson County?
In Jackson County? Huh? Well, of course, you mentioned the Boilermakers while ago in the situation there. That's the only one in Jackson County, Gene.
Now, we keep in constant touch with the Boilermakers, find out what the status is and what they're moving. And their status right now is the worst it's been at all. They've got more squabbles going on in that one union. I had one of my closest friends in there the other day. Now, what's your status now? Is any change for you attending the state convention? Brother Barnes, we can't attend anything as Boilermakers. It'd be a fight. Well, when you gonna elect your business agent? That we can't do anything as a union. You can't get 6 people to agree on anything good about anybody. So they in the worst shape right now by their own view. Brother Holloway and Preston Donna, Buck McMahon. But those boys are in desperate straits. Now you sent me a notice that sheet metal was delinquent. How long before they were straightened out?
Well, you come right on in, right after that.
Now, there wasn't any one person that did that. You sent the notice. I prodded 2 or 3. 2 or 3 of them ran to Claude. Claude did his part of it. Frida and her bunch had done their part. Now, I want to reemphasize that again. One of the greatest things in our state movement is the complete payment of dues and special assessment of that group over there. That has shamed many a group here. And the job they've done is good. And I want him to remember that. Now, one other view on this getting in with them. Dora Davis was one of the greatest lawyers that ever lived in Mississippi. One of the most successful. Dora Davis never did affiliate, I don't believe, with any one church. He loved them all too well. He attended all of them. Dora Davis never did select any one choice whiskey. He said all whiskey's good. Consequently, Dora could meet with anybody in any church affiliation, drink with anybody in any brand of whiskey there was, and if there's any other activity now that men take part in, Dora was ready for that. Do you think that he ever picked a jury that didn't have somebody on it to throw that thing for Dora? And that's the way we've got to reach these people, because they're the same people that Dora Davis was reaching that we've got to reach. The same one. And that's the only thing that's ever met them in Mississippi. Why is the Manufacturers Association having that success? Why are they electing those people? Because they studied Dora's methods and they use them. Why aren't we? We're not paying any attention to it.
There's also one other thing that I might ought to mention here, that has happened since the board met. The executive committee, after a rather lengthy deliberation, authorized the exoneration of 3 local unions until such time as they got work and got straightened out. Those 3 local unions being Laborers 145 here in Jackson, Chemical Workers 334 in Columbia, and Woodworkers 218 in Hattiesburg. Now, of course, the business agent of Laborers had approached us about their problem some time back, and I give the facts as I had them to the executive committee. And the chemical workers in Columbia had been out of work for some time. This is a stump plant down there for some time, and that didn't work at all. And I'm sure all of you saw in the paper where woodworkers in Hattiesburg lost 2 men, were killed on the job in an explosion. Before that, their entire wood supply caught a fire and burned up. All the stumps on the yard, in fact. And those boys are known for a real, Dixie Pine. Been in real tough luck. So the executive committee did vote to exonerate these 3 organizations. And I have here in my hand now another request for exoneration of payment of per capita tax and dedicated assessment from Local 708 Amalgamated Clothing Workers in Columbia because of no work.
Well, it's getting
It's
long
supper time
late
now.
I felt that this matter ought to be brought before you here this afternoon, if you see what your opinion on it was. And I suspect that what we'll have to do here is to stand available for a meeting in the event something develops on this thing. Decision might have to be made by the board if you want to take a position. It appears to me that, according to what most of you said here, that you don't think that we're in a position to move down on the dues structure. But if the situation develops where it looks like it's necessary for a board meeting, I think that we should call that meeting, and we should have Stanton Smith should invite him to it. Is that fall in line with your thinking?
A board or council meeting?
Full board. I think since we got the board in, I'd prefer to have the full
Well, you mean the
board.
next 3 days?
Yeah. Anytime that the full board's around, I think all the executive committee members themselves would prefer the board to handle these things. In the absence of the board meeting, and we let the council and the executive committee handle it. Anytime the board is available, I think the full board should act. Well, now we have our distinguished vice president just come in, who is leaving us, the labor movement, and I think we ought to give him an opportunity to say something. Gail, tell us a little something here, son.
Claude, don't say I'm leaving the labor movement, I'm still in it.
Well, I mean leaving the labor council, let's just put it that way.
I couldn't leave the labor movement at all.
We know that.
In fact, I would be glad to still serve and work in the council here if I was in the state of Mississippi, but I can't very well do it in Georgia. serving with all of you folks. And, I'll still be backing you in every way I can. I'm with the apprenticeship training, United States Department of Labor.
You seen the committee appointment?
Sir?
Seen the committee appointment? You told me
Well,
that you
before you
were
get
with.
away, maybe I might ought to make my position clear too. Yeah, that's the same thing, I hadn't thought about it. But,
Yeah, you talking about you will. That's dead.
I don't intend to.
You is.
Let's let Don, he's got something he wants to pass on to you, yeah.
If Barney wants to go ahead, let him go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm beg your pardon.
No, due to the fact that I'm on the staff of the Papermakers Union for the town now, and most of my travels are in Louisiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee, mostly Tennessee, that I will not have time to, well, I haven't had time to put into the State Labor Council the work that I would like to. So I'm not going to run again for that. So I have in mind a boy out of Natchez. We don't have anyone else down there. I have in mind a boy to nominate for the board, and I hope he is supported by most of the people because it would leave us vacant down there as far as the board member.
No, we need a board man down, there's no question about that. Well, I hate to hear that, Don, I know the rest of them do.
Well, I've served on this board now way back on the old State Labor Council. I think Frida and I probably the oldest two on the board.
Yeah, you are.
And Frida older than I. Frida was on the board of the old Mississippi State Labor Council,
State
Federation of
Labor,
Labor.
yeah.
I forgot the name.
He just means years
Before.
of service.
You were too.
I'm taking
I
that
know it,
under
but
consideration.
Frida was on this board before.
Yeah, seniority on you.
Yeah, before I was elected to the board, and I believe it was in 1953 that I was elected to the board of the Mississippi Federation of Labor, and served ever since. It's definitely been a pleasure all these years, and I hate to remove myself from it. Still, I intend to stay pretty close to the labor movement in Mississippi, especially, and try to keep as many people in any local union I go into. I always, whether it's in this state or any other state, speak of the state labor councils in their state and encourage them to get in. And I'll continue doing that.
I so appreciate that, Don.
Well, being Don said he would be a candidate, I will not be a candidate myself.
Like it is,
The whole board,
What's your excuse, Ray?
Well, I'm like Don, I've served my apprenticeship out on this thing. I've been in since 1951, I think, back in our old council. So, I just give somebody else an opportunity. Of course, I'll go down to the road workers, and I work in the state a lot. Of course, I'm subject to be pulled out in Tennessee too, or Arkansas. I won't have as much opportunity to put in as much time as I did while I was in the plant, so I think I'll just step out.
Gosh, we're gonna have a
We are going to have a new board.
board, yeah.
We gonna service them anything?
Yeah, service.
I think they ought to give us service fee, a bank or something, I'd rather get a pension.
Well, I think I can speak for the rest of the board here, that we regret very much to see all three of you leave this, the executive board and the executive committee, of course, two of you. Because I'd say this to your face as well as I would to somebody else, that I think you three are the finest people we've got. And it would be a real loss to the organization to lose either one of you, much less all three of you. We certainly regret to see you have to leave us. It's been a pleasure to work with each and every one of you, and I'm satisfied I speak for everybody else here. We've got some real compliments. some of our friends on this thing. I think we've got a group of the finest people on this executive board that you'll find anywhere. I think they'll stack up with anybody, don't you, Dan?
Absolutely. Now, best board in the state of Missouri.
I think it is. I think we really have one of the finest groups of people here. Well, I suspect that we took care of all we can take care of without starting to death. We, will leave here. We'll adjourn this meeting with an understanding that if the need arises, we'll call a meeting of the board. And may I wish all of you, the ones that's going to be candidates for re-election, all the success in the world. Anybody have any announcement, anything they want to say before?
Where's the poker game gonna be?
Poker game.
I thought it was all broke.